The events unfold in the Kingdom of the Knife, on the border, where the lands of Barrenism lay Babylon. This is where it all began. In the so-called Hollow Territories, one of our stories unfolded. It was here that the young girl challenged Lord Jesus himself. Thanks to the actions of the newly appointed ruler, these lands were waiting for dramatic changes that no one could predict. One day, Mr. Gru went for a walk to take praise of the inhabitants, and suddenly became fascinated by their city. So the story of our hero began. It was on that strange day that everything turned upside down. Among the ruins, two boys quarreled. One, screaming to the other, did not climb to him, called him a friend, and laughed, being a former honeycomb. Another, with a bandaged head, merged and asked what kind of infusion he was. Many people slept here on the streets. Life flowed through the screen of indifference. Exhausted, sick people wandered everywhere. The girl tried to seduce the passer-by, but having received the refusal, she snapped him, calling impotent. The boy ran past the man who was screaming in his back, calling his freak, and suddenly cries about the demon. Suddenly, an angry finger flew from the sky, lifting a terrible cry that pierced the streets. A skinny old with a stick exclaimed the curse to the beast, but did not have time to do anything. Blood was flooded from the body. This place is all called the Babylonian Hell, a name that erupts with fear among the inhabitants. At that moment, the man at the table broke out with a cry. They say, he will no longer stand at any moment. This earth is devastated, full of rats and cockroaches, no grain. Even in the soup, grass, real damn grass. And he had to cook himself. He was out of a noble kind, but never saw luxury. Do not aristocrats live in luxurious estates, tasting a juicy steak under the moon? But the thoughts of wealth overshadowed their people. They suffered from poverty, and it did not give him rest. These lands have become a refuge of exiles, sick, half-life, and apostates. A real landfill, except for one exception. It was an alcoholic to rule this hole, the same as his parents. And in the end, he slept to death. He remembered how his father just escaped from all that. And yesterday the letter came. Gru from Babylon is appointed by the main lord of the territory. Who would have thought he would become Lord Sokua? The elders could use combat magic. No one touched them. And he does not even have therapeutic spells. This thought frightened him to the bones, because every aristocrat has both combat and restorative magic. If it goes on, it will be killed by the first bandits, just for entertainment. What to do now? He felt worthless. Thoughts were spinning in his head, but none brought consolation. Suddenly, someone broke the door behind his back. Okarali voice. Are you Lord? Yes? He has already been tired of the nobles. From the slit in the wall appeared face, a cry. This land is now. In front of him were the scum, exhausted, sick, crazy. It was too late. Normally, the nobles would have attacked magic. Even if they were void, they would escape. And here some old booga shouted, New Lord, generally without magic. And then he understood. He was exposed. Panic squeezed inside. Do they really want to kill me? Maybe fall on his knees, lick their shoes? But outside he kept a calm look. One of the wounded was angry. Virodok. But in his soul he wondered, how is he so calm? Maybe it's all a lie, and he still has magic. And Lord himself thought only of how the face was silent. It was even more angry with the enemy. He decided that he just wanted to look cool in this situation. Anless man shouted, It's because of you, scum, I lost my hand. I was a gardener. I was cut off just like that, for fun. When the hero tried to hit, he decided to answer magic. But at once, the outbreak of light, even the attacker himself. He covered his face with his palm, and then everyone realized he used magic. The attacker suddenly began to overgrown with bones and muscles, transforming simply in the eyes. It turned out that the magic of the hero, he grew his new hand. A real miracle, though not planned. Here's a boob, he thought. I used healing just in the air without thinking. At this point, someone grabbed his hand and head. He was already preparing to ask for a mercy, but it was the same man. He thanked his rescued hand. The hero is called, not understanding what is happening. Everyone was surprised. The aristocrat used the magic of healing on the common man, and still restored the limb? You have not seen such a world yet. The hero himself only thought, but I treated the scratch, and now everything can go scrapes. Leaning to the man, he put his hand on his shoulder and solemnly said, All is well. I'm here. Looking back, he saw the turn of the crippled, and then Mr. grew up. Great. It's time to heal them all. People did not believe their eyes. Someone first saw the world. They thanked the Lord and called him Mr. R.A. The same man remembered everything he heard. It seems that the turning point for the newly appointed Lord has come. Indeed, most inhabitants of these lands are injured and sick. If he heals them, they will become his allies. Even if he does not know how to fight or fight, it is no longer important. He has a different way. Healing, he will win the love of the people, and maybe remain alive. He was already celebrating in his head. He could finally avoid death. And yet, it will eat steaks until it flakes. For his own good, he is ready to satisfy the residents. Here it is, the rise of the lord of the most prominent lands. A few days have passed. A girl in monastic clothes approached the settlement. So it lives here the same lord that treats ordinary people. The lord who spends his magic on common people. She should be able to understand this case. Place, the border zone of the Kingdom of the Front. Barrenism. Babylon is rumored. The worst place on the entire continent. All the wounds and patients who have no more to go. Everything should change. He raised his hand. 262 people stood in front of him. Their bodies shone light. The girl healed and the man saw the light again. The magic of life was a miracle. People exclaimed thanks, called him Baron Rice from Babylon. He just spread his hands. They say, nothing special. But inside he knew. All this, for the sake of safety and his own strength. He imagined how great he would just walk the city, mixing with people. How suddenly he was called. The tired man approached, reported on an almost complete channel, but stopped his hand. The body of the worker was illuminated. Fatigue was removed, the forces returned, and he felt incredible lightness. The magic scattered exhaustion and returned speed. He thanked and stated that he could work again. And he grew up. Here is how you can use therapeutic magic. A little more, and a regular worker will turn into a hero. The work that has been lasting for months will now end in a few days. Ideal schedule. Everyone work, and he lives in luxury. And here someone asked quietly, was it really the back of Mr. Riss? Looking back, he saw a nun with forms that shined through a cut of clothing. His gaze unwittingly stopped on her big breasts, and the thighs that so carelessly emphasized the figure. She apologized for the late greeting and called Alicia, asked permission to ask a question. He smiled. Let him try. She came up, keeping the distance, and looked closely into the eyes of a surprised lord. In Sophiism, the state religion of the Knife Empire, magic is a divine gift, accessible only to aristocrats. To use it for the common people, sacrilege. You don't even have temples. She threw a finger in him. Still you treat ordinary people. He was anxious. Has he already made a disaster? But she added, it's wonderful. He did not believe his ear. Are you serious? Alicia explained. Sophiism is a false faith created by aristocrats to conquer the people. Instead, demiurgism teaches, magic is a tool for saving ordinary people. He asked, are you paid for it? He remembered how many things prohibited official faith. It turns out that he is already a target. And then Alicia grabbed him by his shoulders. They say he is the embodiment of their faith. She begged, receive Demi-Argazal, become the leader of our path. That's right. They needed a hero who uses magic for ordinary people to gain trust. But he could not afford it. He was afraid of persecution and he tried to remove her hands from her shoulders, muttering about some misunderstanding. But Alicia replied that everything is great. They have about 100 followers. He died. 100. Suddenly he changed. He grabbed her hands and enthusiastically stated that he was amazed at the faith of demiurgism. Begged to accept it in the lowest rank. Alicia blushed and she exclaimed in surprise that it was the perfect solution. She is even ready to give him a place on the top. To refuse now means to call a riot. Grode thoughtfully said that they would like to keep them away. And he remembered. There is an old chapel on the outskirts that children used to be. The old church. Alicia was moving. He is like that. Generous. For them whom nobles are considered parasites. She called it a messiah, a demiurga chosen. She suggested that Loli Osaya devote his life to him. He sighed. The isolation worked. He was glad in his thoughts. All is well. No aristocrat will look here. No one knows that I hide the heretics. Alicia called everyone to meet them. Mr. Figures in the hoods began to emerge from the forest. Tens. Hundreds. They bowed to the nuns and exclaimed that the orders of Bishop Alicia would obey. Grode. So she is them. Leader. Alicia addressed him. Take care of them, Mr. Riss, Lord of the borderlands of the Kingdom of the Knife. Baron Babylon. The worst place in the world. But now life was boiling here. Children laughed. Adults were doing affairs. smiling, grew up at the city. Yes, we healed them. These followers of demiurgism, he thought, watching Alicia's speech. She announced, Riss is a real nobleman, because she serves as a common people, unlike rotten aristocrats. In his thoughts, he grunted, what does this blonde nun make? Even if it is popular, more than 3,000 of them. Even the old hut was turned into church. When did it become a real temple? If they went better to plow. But it's even profitable. If they consider it a messiah, why not use them in favor? These are allies. Suddenly, some Afro-hooligan appeared, with the badge of demioism, looked incredibly muscular. This is already a bust, said Gru. He said that it was due to all the magic of fatigue removal, and yet, he asked Lord for a request. There is a small problem. You should go to the outskirts, cities. A group of animals settled in the forest. Most of them flew from the destroyed country, transformed into slaves. Now they are criminal slaves. In his thoughts, he grew up on the verge of tears. He did not want to deal with these relics, but also to ignore them. Even more scary, the Afro boy asked the assistant about the situation. He answered, they seemed to just seize the forest and watch silently. Meanwhile, dozens of eyes shone from the darkness of the forest. Silent, vigilant, dangerous. Gro felt a spooky thirst for blood, although among them were old, women, and children. Afro believed that there were no good fighters there, and he hesitated. Maybe drive them? He smiled. They are no worse than us. Let's just talk. To begin a guerrilla war with creatures that are stronger than us physically, absurd. Let them have fun. But he thought me to think that in such a number of people there will be some sick or injured. Therefore there will be a chance to apply treatment. He involuntarily admired himself. Well, he is a resourceful. He shouted into the woods, introduced himself to Lord Barrenism Babylon, and demanded meetings with their representative. At that moment, the arrow fell at his feet. People behind raised a noise. This is the reception. From the trees came a girl with ears and lush shapes, holding a stretched bow. She ordered her husband to appear. He grew surprised. Is that what the main one is? A girl? She annoyedly stated that he was just looking for an excuse to remove her from the road. Rose answered calmly, I do not want to fight. I came to help. The world needs it. But the girl kept the bow with alert and mockingly stating, the aristocrat decided to help? Disgusting beast? She brought the bow on him, exclaiming, you lie, and you don't even turn red. The arrow broke from the bowstring. He grew shuddered. The arrow flew just at him at a speed that not to stop words. But even before something happened, the Afro boy caught the arrow right in front of his face. He thanked him mentally, at the same time thinking, this girl with dog ears is too hot. And here the elder addressed her. It is enough. We don't need anything else. The Afro boy was angry, broke the arrow with a naked and shouted, how dare you to attack us twice? His anger was huge. The rest of the men exclaimed that they would make them regret the boldness to Mr. Riss. They shouted in response that they are worthless, and these lands now belong to them. Everything was exacerbated until someone's voice cut the air, forcing everyone to froze. It was Alicia. The Afro boy was happy about her appearance, and the girl with her ears called her a priestess of Sophiasm. He grew up. It gets even more interesting. But Alicia shouted sharply that they were the faithful followers of the true God, the Demiurga, and forbade to mix their faith with religion created for the convenience of aristocrats. She explained that she understands that it is impossible to trust the insidious nobility. But their messiah, Mr. Riss, is perfect. It will definitely bring them salvation. And they can't believe him? By order of the priestess, the girl with her ears promised to gather wounded and sick. But she warned, do not do anything suspicious. He just smiled. And what in fact can I still do in such a situation? With sadness in the voice of the Zvodovchina raised the child. Start with this. Gro assured, nothing special is needed, and raised his hand. At the same moment, the girl's face cleared, and the shoulders of the arena breathed slightly. As if a heavy stone disappeared from her soul, the space shone, and people began to heal. The tails were no longer wounded, the wounds disappeared, the bodies glowed with health. When the girl with her ears wanted to get closer, she stopped her. But Alicia did not restrain her. He threw himself around his neck. You are incredible. And he thought, my magic became even stronger. Daily practice gives its own. The native was shocked. The nobleman heals such as they. And he smiled and decided to go on. He said that not everything, and he voiced the proposal to become his subjects and live a free life under his protection. The arena was stuck. Her ears almost fell from surprise. She stared at him, but suddenly a dead lion daikon fell before them. Riss added, "We have many of them, and we can't always be soft. But I am a player with extensive experience," he thought with complacency. "Even if someone has a stomach upset, I will heal you again, and you will become even more obliged to me. And you do not have to get rid of the corpses of monsters. 2 problems are 1 solution. Will it not be angry about it?" But the navigator lifted her gaze and sincerely thanked for the food. Growing was a little shocked. She could not believe that someone gave them such a dish, as if it were worthless. This guy, really good. The old animal explained that for their people, it is the most delicious dish in the world. He was amazed at how well known grew, and Lord himself is shocked what it can be eaten. Chewing meat, the arena apologized for rudeness and introduced. She promised to thank, and Gru replied, "At the time, border of the kingdom of the knife, Barrenism of Babylon. People call this place mobile landfill, but these lands changed. They received helpless, heretics and criminals, and turned them into something new." Growing, buried under a ton of papers, tiredly roared. There was no forces to endure. How did the number of animals increase to several hundred in just a month? And heretics even more. To the hell, all it only complicates work. He would like to hire people and pay them just nothing. And here someone flew into the room and rushed, "Door." The wind tore all the papers from his table and had to collect them feverishly on the floor. An alarmed Alicia ran into the office. "I heard a strange voice. You don't need help?" And he grew up only, "What is wrong with her?" She apologized for the invasion. Apparently, I thought so much about Mr. Riss, who was already hearing voices. And he thought, it is already shining. And here she looked at him in love with her eyes. And she said she had to talk seriously. In the window appeared the arena. "Are you discussing things here?" "Come through the door, not like a monkey," said Rice. Arena, full of energy, ran and gave Alicia 5. She happily stated, "Not only I. Everyone feels great thanks to the general." She hugged Rice, wrapping her breast to his face, and said that the best was the water that he gives them. "Real, man." Growing smiled. "It is nice to hear and, to put it mildly, to feel it." Alicia, red, came closer and noted that it was not necessary to prevent the gentleman from working, but the arena denied it does not interfere. On the contrary, wants to discuss the security of the territory. Grode, again, the worries. He focused on Alicia and asked what she wanted, but excitedly replied, "I want to talk about education in our lands." And in the head of Risa he was heard, "Please, just not even more work." The arena stated that they were just training with the locals. One of the trainers was Gorlan that people are only people, not the fault, so lower creatures. But after these training, they will become real warriors. And as a collective punishment, 200 more exercises were added. The coach shouted that everyone should lay for Mr. Riss and Her Highness of the arena. In her head in the arena, thoughts about the cruelty of learning were spinning. She urged Rice to look. "This is fine." Alicia also said that she teaches children elementary knowledge and wants to grow her work. She turned to the children and said, "The next time you can ignore labels, and yet you can visit the church in your spare time." Meanwhile, an adult taught a child on the field, but the pace was unsuccessful. It is not to like. Alicia imagined a group of kids approaching her. Kids are so cute and sincere. By the way, she's one of those girls who dream of having as many children as possible. Both girls were not behind and insisted, "Mr. Gru, visit us." Later the thought flashed in Rice's head. Do these two really have a feeling for me? Maybe still lure them. But immediately he mocked, "No, I'm not so desperate." On the one hand, a sister blinded by a pagan faith, the only valuable one in which is large breasts. On the other, a lecherous dog whose thoughts are only around him. Everything he liked in them is appearance. But get tied, but don't even dream. Now it is not time to run an illusion. Each of them is the leader of a large group, so you need to find a reason to go without offending. And he found. He grew up and promised. They will discuss everything, later. Alicia instead suggested, "Let the farm be and a little rest like spa." Grow has agreed. The constant supply of food is now extremely important. The arena added that with so many monsters with meat there will be no problems. But he grew up. "So far all is well, but resources can run out. You are glad to eat everything in a row. And in my lands, cattle dies from disease. We need to find out the cause," he added. Both girls tensed. Alicia thought, he will apply divine magic in cattle. This is the biggest taboo of Sophia's. What a majestic it is. And the arena dreamed of new videos with meat delicacies. Grow summed up, no chat, we go on, and both agreed, yes, master. They reached the village, where they were met by a thin old man. The old man turned to Rice, confessing that he did not expect him to see here. Growing replied that it was a request of the people he could not ignore, and went to calf that lay near a large animal. It looked at him and rose to his feet. The girls shone with joy. Before them the calf began to jump from happiness. The hero understood. Therapeutic magic is able to truly heal. But the calf is still too small to eat. And then a terrible idea flashed in her head. What? How to cut the meat as much as needed without killing the animal, and then heal. But he immediately rejected the opinion, too cruelly. There must be a different way. And then the calf ran to the arena and poked her nose in. Breast. Suddenly he remembered something. Do they have fresh meat? As soon as possible. Bring it immediately. The girls looked at a plate of meat that they put before Rice. What is he going to do with him? The guy raised his hand and activated the magic of the healing Revi, for the sake of an abundant table. And then something incomprehensible began. Meat cells began to change, turned into embryos. The impossible became real. Right on the table appeared calves. Everyone was shocked. What about the devil? Ride was in despair. What else can this magic be able to do? He did not even have normal books at home, he did not know. But that meant food would no longer miss. Alicia exclaimed enthusiastically, "You are wonderful. You created life. Now, the next challenge, create a new life more." He grew cold-blooded. It will solve the problem of food. Moreover, we will also earn. Everything goes great. And yet I thought, you should already hire beautiful and normal girls. He approached the calves and hugged them, gently calling small posteriors. The moon passes. Among the fields and mountains is a carriage. Inside, children with wounds, bandaged, mutilated. One of them whispered, "This is the end." They arrived at the border of the kingdom of the knife. In the Barrenism of Babylon are the same place that all call the washing pit of the kingdom. This is where this carriage went. Inside sat severely ill, crippled children, both humans and reprimands. Everyone coughed, squeezed bandages, silent. One of the girls could not put up with reality. Why did everything happen? From all places they were sold to Babylon. Was their new lord a crazy maniac who was called Meat Earthquake? The girl shouted in a panic, "Please no, although die clean." The animal replied that lord had already been replaced. But a new, will it be better? Maybe even more scary? Another girl laughed bitterly. It seems that the goddess Sophia does not like us. On the days when they fell to the bottom, crippled, enslaved, they are now sent to death. One of the children whispered, "Why not bite yourself for your tongue and just die?" Although we will repay these nobles. Everyone stopped. The girl looked into the eyes of another. There was no hope in the eyes. And here, suddenly someone shouted, "These lands are already—" The children shuddered with fear. They were even afraid to imagine what they would be with them now. Suddenly, a new landscape opened in front of the children. Fields planted with gorgeous roses, smiling people in the sun, planted something joyfully. The cattle grazed in the field, pink-eyed pigs ran, and gold rye rolled everywhere. They asked with surprise, "What is it?" Meanwhile, the carriage has stopped in front of the big door. They were met by workers with smiles. "Welcome to Babylon." Stunned, all in the wounds, the girls stepped carefully on the ground. Afrays shouted, "Mr. Rice promised to hide us. It was probably very difficult for you." The other said that it proves again, the goddess Sophia is a falsehood, and demiurgism is their path. Now they are safe. The feast was embarrassed. "What does it mean?" A man approached them and said, "Do not frighten the girls." It was Mr. Riss himself, shining, smiling, in good humor. One girl was red, struck by his appearance. The workers apologized to the fuss. Riss introduced, "I lured grew Babylon. You went through hell, but now you are here. Mentally, heal them, and we'll get a faithful, dedicated force. Ideal. Plan." The children were fascinated. "Lord, does us turn to us? To slaves? Is that a joke?" "A nobleman talks to slaves?" He just smiled gently. "There is nothing to be afraid." He pulled the glove denser and asked, "Let me heal you." "What are you gathering?" "Do?" The girl did not have time to arrange how sparks of light appeared between his palms. Someone shouted. Someone had a chest pain. The other felt like a hand listening. The third eye was healed, and the fourth was finally able to stand. The girl looked at him. Sir, you are a nobleman. Do you use your divine power? For us? He only played and said with a smile, From now on you will work for maids in my personal estate, but first, recovery. He turned to Alicia. Take care of them in temples. But she was glad. Of course, leave it to me. She came to the girls and gladly said, You can call me older sister. At this point the boys came and smiling stated, You were lucky. You became part of Babylonian. The animal thought in surprise, How is it? People get along with us so well. Someone from behind answered, That's right. The girl turned. There was the arena in front of her. She dropped on her knee. Thanks to Mr. Rice, we are, and people live on an equal footing. And I ask you. Irina apologized for all the troubles that the girl suffered through her, and asked, Help Mr. Riss. With tears in her eyes and replied, You are too good. I will give him my life. Growing watched on the side mentally. How nice to see how my vassals love me more. Now that he could speed up the growth of magic, his land was rich in his eyes. He already considered himself incredibly gifted. Lord, if it goes on, a few more girls, and it will be possible to flirt. Ha! Maybe it's time to collect a harem. Thank you, universe. A few months have passed, and it seems that everything went as he dreamed. But putting his head on the table, he grew up. He became fascinated by a little. There were too many slaves. He treated the girls to tears. The inhabitants of barren lands praised him without stopping. But the money was over. Although it was possible to provide food with magic, trade did not go. They knocked on the door. It was Alicia, apologized for the invasion, and she said that the first of the girls was ready to serve. She invited her to the office. Come on. Badly in the office entered Belle, in a gorgeous dress, well, groomed and beautiful. She gladly exclaimed that she wanted to serve him sincerely. He grew up. Good. But there are rules. No touches. Just look. A few years later, maybe. And here he was in the fall. A minute. Is she not a younger sister of that first group? He thought that Alicia would lead the elder, but Alicia smiled. This girl is from a merchant family. He knows how to read, write, count, knows etiquette and manners. Her devotion to you is boundless. The girl also smiled. In this case, I hope to work together. Her gaze burned with obsession when she called him Mr. Riss, their messiah. In the estate of Babylon, the girlfriend was knocking on the door. Mr. Rice, you are called. Opening the door, she apologized for uninvited guests. And growing almost crying in his soul, he said, We are bankrupt. He could solve the issue of water with water, but no one buys anything. The reputation of Babylon goods is disgusting. Who in general wants to consume? He sighed. Maybe raise taxes. To say that it is to help the wounded slaves, said Rice. No, you cannot be forced to work right now. It's the Babylonian seamstress. They will also get me. Mentally stopped himself. At this point, the girl came with apples. Maybe ear? He replied that everything was fine, just thinking about the problem with monetary circulation. The girl apologized and added that she did not intend to interfere with the noble reflection of the gentleman. And Gru replied, Don't worry, I just came to the conclusion, we don't change anything. Status quo. This is also called putting everything in the field. He took a fork and shook a piece of ice. He tasted and said, Delicious. Growing wondered. These apples, from the territory of Bonkel, yes? Yes, the girl replied. They are known throughout the country. And here he remembered. She was sold from those lands. I'm a little lounger. He grew up and apologized for his impolite. He did not want a maid of 24 to 6 at night. She only asked her head to lift her head, and reached out to him. It was a painful experience, she said, but I met Mr. Riss. And indifferent that my family was destroyed because of a fake competitor accusation, that my parents died of a heart attack, and that I was sold in slavery. He grew up. I came to an emotional mine. Damn apple. A minute. He grabbed. Can I clone these apples with magic? The girl replied. Yes, it is possible. There are still varieties of first class in those in trucks. It just does it. If you sell them without mentioning Babylon, but at an affordable price, we will break the bush. Bonkel residents will be delighted, Rice thought. It will be a grand project, he exclaimed. Tell everyone, and thank you. Belle came to him. He asked, "What happened?" She carefully asked, "All you do for those sold from Bonkel?" He grew up. Well, partly is true. But even that he himself is not in slavery. Aloud replied, "Yes, I do it. And I am not at all like the Lord Bonklius." Belle shone. "It's great. You are really like Ms. Alicia. You are worthy to become a king," she exclaimed. He grew up. King? If someone hears what I am called, there will be trouble. Riss thanked Belle for the warm words, but warned, "Be careful with the wording. Now, an extremely sensitive period, and he does not want him to be suspected of betrayal." Yes, no hint of betrayal, he confirmed. And then he ordered that all the preparations would be completed the same. The day. At the north, an important meeting in the church had to take place. There, the main maid of the estate, Belle, announced, "The gentleman grew clear instructions. He does not want him to be suspected of something too much." Male. Alicia with a smile, "My God, but I'm the founder of the Demiurge Church, and not just that. She is the former princess of the destroyed kingdom of animals. Dimensional." Alicia with a sly smile added, "I understand everything. As I thought." Irina confirmed, "Yes, Mr. Rice seems to be planning to rebel against the king." Alicia blushed. "We already know everything. From the very beginning, he was against a noble look at magic. They say it cannot be spent on a common people. The first step," the Irina replied, "to copy the chips of neighboring lands and destroy the Meccans. If you make an exact copy but cheaper, the price of the original will fall and the money will go into Babylon. They only need their own person for smuggling routes and insurance if suddenly arrest." Alicia promised, "The church will cover everything." Irina, "I will continue to work on the Babylon army. As soon as we get foreign currency, we will buy slaves and strengthen the forces." Belle with glitter in the eyes, "Mr. grew so incredible. Yes, his plans are ruthless, but for us, slaves, he is good. He does all this for the sake of us, those who hated Bonkel." The Irina agreed. "He treats us, the animal, as equal. If he became a king, it would be great. By the way, how are you and the maid?" she asked. Belle replied, "They are ready to die for Mr. Riss. Although, unfortunately, they cannot win his heart. Because Mr. Grew is not like other abominable nobles," Alicia thought. "She deliberately selects girls who do not fit him. But once she is, it will be the only one." "I want to be the one whom the gentleman will choose," Alicia exclaimed. And Irina looked shocked on her breasts. "Is the matter in them?" And grabbed them with both hands. "It is clear even to the touch. Belle, help!" The Irina thought out aloud. "They are really big. How does Mr. Rice withstand such a trial?" Alicia, "I would also like to know," and suddenly raised the fabric near the groin of the Irina. Her eyes were swayed. "Oh ho! She is really without underwear!" she exclaimed. "Is that your cunning seduction plan?" The Irina almost cried out, "We have tails! We do not wear linen!" Belle screamed, "No! Stop both!" Both girls only smiled. "We were just close." The Irina breathed. A little unfair that she is the only one does not participate. She looked at them confusedly. "What?" "No ... But it was too late. Their exclamations were heard from the castle to the whole inner yard. 2 months have passed. In the kingdom of Bonkel, the land of the burden, Lord Jacob Bonkley, 45 years old, with anger his fist on the table. "I want to explain. Why did so many copies appear on the market? All are identical to ours. Does anyone trade on our part?" he shouted. Captain Guard, Klaus, reported, "It is impossible, my lord. No trace of leakage. Most brands are closed." But suddenly he got a strong blow. "What did you say?" cried Lord, pushing Klaus to the floor. "How could you not notice it?" Jacob hugged. "Lift up and find a scoundrel who creates all these fakes, immediately." Walking out, the exhausted servant said, "They are sold too many people. It is difficult to find." In response, Lord came up with, "Are you, Shiny, even argue?" All his anger hit the floor near the young man who... He barely had time to bounce and rush to the exit. Meanwhile, the lands were losing capital through that damn Babylon and its garbage reputation. "I do not know who is standing behind it," the Lord roared, "but find, I swear." Meanwhile, on the border of the Kingdom of the Knife, in the Baronism of Bombs, despite geographical backwardness, the neighborhood with Babylon made the city prosperous, thanks to excellent local goods. It was all right. This horrible copy scam has not begun. In the castle, someone called Klaus. "Close the door!" He entered and saw a man on the floor. He asked nervously, "Isn't that the slave trafficker?" Lord shouted, "Yes, he is. And his business for some reason is thriving. He sold slaves to Babylon in huge volumes. As these God-forgotten land have so much money?" Jacob was convinced the money was stolen from his Barrenism, and it was he who made all these copies. He clapped the man until Klaus asked, "Lord, stop! He will die." "And what of that?" said Lord Jacob. He was indifferent how many lowly rabbi would die. Klaus carefully remarked, "But there is no evidence that they are—" "Evidence? Evidence?" Lord was breathtaking from rage. "Do you still tell me what to do, freak? You have time before sunset. You will find guilty. You live. No, hang up." Jacob shook. Klaus ran out of the castle. Lord remembered the rumor. They say the current head of Babylon is a worthless mansuit. Even attacking magic is not able. That's how. I will call him on a duel. This freak is a parody of a nobleman generated by the rot of this earth. I'll wipe Babylon from the face of the world. After going outside, Klaus sat on a bench. The heart squeezed. There was little left before the event, and he would not find the guilty. In fact, he was the organizer of smuggling. What to do? She asked why he didn't ask for help. After all, he once helped her with the same smuggling. He answered with a smile. It was fun to watch these nobles explode from rage, even if the whole kingdom burns because of this. But if Jacob is expelled, he added, the people will be happy. Finally, the Lord, who takes care of the poor. You are from the quarters, like me, Felicia whispered. Then she got up and said, once, go to Riss. See, feel Babylon with your own eyes. You will not regret, she smiled. The young man thought for a moment, and he admitted, maybe in Babylon it will really be better. At this time the girl with his tail turned to Mr. Riss. Do you need help? Bell replied, we will do anything for him. For some reason, the former slaves from the lands of Bonkli became more and more committed to RIS. They came to him and reported, you came to you, visitor. He looked at Bell. Is the captain of the Bonklius Guard? The one who once helped with transportation? In Bonklius, he was one of the few who did not mock. Even when Bell was prisoner, he brought her sweets. Maybe he is cunning than it seems, he thought. But what does he need? The suspicion raged in his head, and suddenly the guy jumped out of the closet. Hide me! Shouted. What? I wanted to see the city with my own eyes. He did not believe that everyone lives here in harmony. What overcame not only the difference in status, but also in the race. Being kneeling, he said, there is everything I could dream about. In Babylon. He grew his hands on Claus's shoulders and said that they would discuss all later. First, ask permission to heal his body. He raised his hand, and the bright light of the magic of healing enveloped the young man. Even the clouds seemed to be frozen when Klaus's wounds began to shine. Stunned, he grabbed his feet. Thank you, Mr. Rice. You really have been told about you. He just smiled. Not worth it. You helped us. Thank you. But Klaus added seriously, and Jakob, he is a real freak. All people are cattle for him. He grew up. Now I understand why you came. Klaus bowed in the bow. Please let me serve you. Order. Growing the warmth. First, eat and rest. You are tired. The young man cursed, not from pain but from kindness. But suddenly he gathered with the spirit and seriously said, Mr. Rice is somewhat important. Jacob has terrible intentions. He wants to call you a duel and destroy Babylon. There is an explosion in Rice's head. It was still lacking, Rage raged. He wants to destroy the country that I raised so much time, where people learn to smile again by buying great products at an affordable price. And a duel? Indeed. It is too dangerous to compete with a nobleman who has an attacking magic. What do I do? He fought mentally. Klaus asked, are you okay? And Bell whispered, quiet. Mr. Rick, deeply immersed in thoughts. Now the owner uses his divine thinking. He thinks about every step, in advance. And here he grew up to her. Collect everyone. I declare an emergency. And to Klaus added, excuse me, rest will have postpone. Going with Alicia and Bell, he grew up between the inhabitants. Everyone welcomed him. But he was too focused, did not respond. In his gaze, determination was burning. He stopped and addressed the people. Listen, Bonkly Barrenism declared us war. I could fight myself, but we have a people. I got the decision during the divine reflection. People listened focused. He grew up. Will we give our lands to this stupid and evil nobles, after all that we have invested our soul? And most importantly, do you want to put me on a deadly danger? No, he exclaimed. It's a war. Everyone who is able to fight, take up. Alicia with the arena was viewed. Their time has come. The arena was enthusiastically noted. It is so similar to Mr. Riss, to start acting immediately as claws fell. Alicia nodded. She worked for so long with that clown. The arena began to imagine something and blushed. Sir, you don't. Alicia was too snapped, but assured. No, everything is wrong. She has already decided that the first in her life would only grow up. The arena just smiled. But I'm kidding. Although, ready for wars? No problem, the arena said firmly. The hostile security is already neutralized, and with claws on their side, they will be able to. It is time to lift Mr. Riss and the Demiregia cult to a new level. Grow with his fist raised, he proclaimed. The battle begins. Meanwhile, Lord Zhukov was lying on the floor, covering the crowd outside the window. He was summoned. Come out! You admitted it. Why didn't I catch the guilty? People screamed, Beetle is an ordinary worthless lawyer, not Lord. Due to these fakes, his store went bankrupt. Everyone decided the economic crisis is his fault. The riots began. Why do we pay taxes? Zhukov tried to defend himself. It's all through Babylon Rice. They are guilty. Why are they accused of me? Why not this crowd, not driven this crowd? Oh yes, then it is recognized incapable. A butcher. The stones were already flying into the windows. The cries became more louder. Away! One of the stones hit the beetle right in the head. He swayed and fell. Somewhere on the side, a voice came. Dressing scum! But everyone heard the beetle shouting for help. No, I will wipe! He waved his hands, and underground something turned out. He summoned the golem, forcing the earth. Walk up with a deaf roar. Huge golem appeared before him. Attack! Zhukov ordered. Destroy this dirty crowd! People in panic began to flee, but one of the golem had already grabbed the earth with those who did not have time to escape. Among the crowd came, You are a real demon lord! Zhukov shouted. Who died? The outlines of numerous figures, on horses and on foot, emerged from the dust clubs. They ran directly to the battlefield. The Rice army, faithful to him, collected from all his lands. Growing, sitting on a horse, proclaimed loudly, I grew up Babylon, and I will protect these people. He wondered inside. Did they arrive in time? After all, he doesn't even know what. The plan has this church. Lord Yakov interrupted him. What are you doing here with a whole camp of murmurs? Looking at, he exploded. Guard! What do you allow yourself? How did you let this crowd? But Klaus's face made him go. He said clearly, Now they are under the rule of Babylon. The people were glad. Go to us, we are with Rice. The security was no longer with him. Lord exploded in a frantic cry, no longer realizing what was going around. And around him was surrounded by the golem, which he himself called. Only now, everything went out of plan. Crisis, betrayal, rebellion. Jacob accused of all Rice, and he just thought, What? Is that more for the beacon? Alicia smiled with regret. Sad, right? The arena added, This is a paying for disrespect for the people. Our people are our fortress. Growing is confused. What about the beacon? It is not necessary to let this in my palace disinfectant. Lord Yakov is crazy. It is unacceptable. I will wipe you from the face of the earth. His eyes are burning rage. Grow tried to gather. Calm. We are more. We can hold on. I create a living wall of human hearts. Listen to everyone, he shouted. Keep together. Attack with far. I will cover you. Rice cavalry came forward confidently with a combat spirit. Alicia smiled coldly. Let's destroy Rice herself. The arena fell. Yes, let's break their dream of Babylon. And, as if not to hear Rice, everyone rushed forward with a cry, Mix it on the plow! And Gru realized he was pushed. Shook Zhukov shouted, Death! But the warriors were already running forward. He thought with horror, and where is the defense? Where are the walls? With a cry on his mouth, he called his own. Where are you? Who will cover me if I still have a trump card in my sleeve? But Lord has already commanded the golem to go to fight. The final battle began. The curtain of the uprising rose. He grew up about their people. They are fighting the last forces, just not to put it under the impact. Jakov shouted to him, "You're a fool! These wicked no-levels! Army!" It was at this moment that the dark-skinned rider on the full jump crashed into Golem and swung his sword. People were caught on the Golem, destroying them as much as their strength. Those who did not have weapons were driven by horses straight at the enemy. Just stop it. Some rushed to the goal, blocking the movement of giants with their bodies. Lord named, "What is wrong with them? Are they not afraid of them?" Growing his mouth with his palm. People beat like animals, and it is better not to drain them. One of the golems struck full power. A person flew like a rag doll, but in a moment, he stood up, scratching his nape. Yakov shuddered. Did he survive? "Perfect!" someone exclaimed. "Glory to Rice!" the crowd shouted. "Now to the left! We have a chance!" Medical magic is able to delay even a deadly wound. Incredibly, the fact. Such power, and in the hands of some aristocrat there? Lord pierced fear, unjust. He is scared for the first time for real. He is frightened by this mind that unites the crowd, like his own hands. It is frightened by this magic. But recognizing the defeat, he lifted his hands and shouted, "I recognize you! An enemy!" and hit the earth, creating a huge crack. Then he ordered the perfect golem. Irina lifted her eyes. A silhouette was approaching from afar, which frightened her presence. What is it? Everyone appeared in front of a giant ghoul, and on his shoulders, a smug lord with a crazy smile. He pointed forward and exclaimed, "Destroy everyone! Start with this rice failure!" No one had time to blink her eye, as Ghoul rushed on the offensive, sweeping everything in his way. People shouted in panic, "Stop it!" But some have already understood. It is impossible. It is too powerful. He grew up his teeth. It's unfairly, but we have to stop it. Somehow, Lord grunted, squeezing his eyes crazy, shouting, "I have the only power. I will wipe you on powder." Alicia exhaled, and Belle, sitting on a horse, exclaimed, "If necessary, bend for him." He grew look at girls. No, now is not a time to move forward. It would be suicide. He made himself gather, focus. But the thoughts were torn. I can't simply give up. I have not yet created the life I dreamed of, luxurious, carefree. His words seemed to lit a fire in the hearts of girls. He said he had kept the trump card specifically against the aristocrats. "Target it! To the attack!" Jakov looked at the little bag in Reese. What did he think? "Goleem, protect me." The bag flew up, and the Lord stopped. Explosion. The earth shook. The cloud of dust, and Golmov's hand is damaged. Its giant body stopped. Lord closed his hands. "Poison? Is that poison?" But he grew his hand and exclaimed, "I will show you a real miracle of life." Lord looked around confusedly. What the hell is going on is happening? A whole flock of cows emerged from the dust club and rushed directly to the enemy. Lord shocked in shock. What about? This is not magic. It is some true creation of life. Incredible. Miracle. The cows flew fearlessly through the hand of Golem, and later became the prey of the hungry city. People shouted happily and grew up. Here she is true justice, the one that does not destroy, but creates. A week after the overthrow of the tyrant, the killer lord. And the energy of the cow explosion remained in memory for a long time. In the vicinity of the territory, Bonclair's young girl ran to Rice. "I want to shake my armia." Someone even asked for an autograph. The people brought him a gift. A sophisticated, worthy lord. And in the head of Rice, one thought turned, being a hero is also a hard work. People who have once been affected by Jacob's chaos now have meat and hope for the future. The wounded healed, but grew up to relax. It's time to enter the history of a beautiful quote. "Because of Jacob's inept reign, the economy has fallen, but we will lift this city from ashes together." It was at this point that someone called him. Klaus dropped on his knee and reported, "Everyone who supported Jacob was captured." Rice answered, "Everyone will receive by merit." Then he approached Belle and gently stroked her on his head. "Those who planted your parents will find. I and Klaus take care of everything. Every day." Her eyes were filled with tears. Grode, "We did everything we could. All that is left is to formally secure Earth." But Irina noted, "The consent of the Duke of Orngima is needed." Alicia confirmed, "Yes. Without it, we will not be able to consolidate the territory." In the room of Rice, Iriana asked Alish, "And he is definitely not a scum," and replied, "I don't think it will be a problem. Because, as we have previously suggested, he may be the missing person we are looking for. He is a noble lord, devoid of a magical gift, but that is why it is free from the chains of false importance. He did not profess the religious dogmas, but never neglected ordinary people. On the contrary, He sincerely sought to improve their lives. And now it became clear who he is. Alicia said with a smile, he would surely be glad that these lands have found a worthy leader. He grew surprised. Who is she? About that duke? About this incredible titanium? Panic engulfed him. Like him, a simple manner to communicate with such grandeur. And suddenly he will offend and make a death sentence for disrespect? However, his thoughts broke his voice. The Duke of Ornheim arrived in person. Edmund, a 45-year-old duke, laughed loudly and addressed Rhys. So, Jacob accused you of failures and decided to destroy? And when did you suggest peace? He started a massacre among his people? Goss confirmed that such cannot be allowed. Bonclea guards, by the way, believe in the innocence of Rhys. He is respected here. He grew up nearly. How smart he is. A real leader. Yes, all this is because of Jacob. A traitor. A crazy. A killer. Just a cartoon on a nobleman. And against the background of such problems, the Duke looks like a real giant. Edmund calmly stated, I turn my eyes on your actions. Your land is now, but manage wisely. He grew up, bowed, and replied, I will rule, even if the expense of my own life. So the territory of Bonclea has officially moved to Rhys. The Duke really turned out to be a good man. Growing mentally wished that all the nobles were like that. Edmund added, I see dignity in your eyes, not formal but real. You are not just the title, but a person. He grew sincerely. I am more grateful to such a servant of the people than the magician, who knows nothing, but they will be trapped, the Duke warned. In a society dominated by magic, such words are dangerous. But will he punish Rhys for honesty? No, he replied. I appreciate sincerity, because the one who considers people's people is doomed to perish. They shook their hands. He has now had a new goal, to protect these lands together. The two of them are ready to fight for peace, even if they have to sacrifice themselves. Edmund gathered on the road. If something, contact. I will break anyone for you. Ride was amazed. In the carriage on the road, Edmund said thoughtfully, this conversation was really important. Hearing that grew, he was treating ordinary people with magic. He did not believe his own ears. But as it turned out, this trip justified. The welfare of the common people is the path to the welfare of the aristocracy. Who does not understand this has long taken off from his throne. Edmund mentioned Rhys and called him an ally. They will still meet, and together they will erase evil on the bloody canvas of peace. After all, someone is already preparing a coup, and stupid lords collect the rebels around them. A new duo of heroes comes on the stage. Meanwhile, on the border of the kingdom of Nosea in Barrenism Babs, Rhys reported that they would help manage the former Bonclea lands. The guy in the bow replied, I am ready to serve on the order of my lord. He thought, as expected from his uncle Ornheim, his possession is strong, but also difficult to govern. And yet, these new lands are quite extreme. The guy in glasses sincerely thanked Rhys for his support and warned, Barrenism is unusual in many senses. Tot confirmed, he shares noble ideas, so he joined. He smiled. I am also for peace and work. Share the burden together. In this case, he wished good luck and promised to inform the local administration. The young man thanked for his openness. Meanwhile, on the outskirts of the Bay Balance, from time to time such places should be visited, one of the satellites said. He grew up the branch and entered the forest, sounding the arena, wanted to talk, but there was a horrible scene before the eyes, among the plates in Nodvili. Bones, huge cauldrons, and people covered with blood were cooked. Oh, that's really you, Rhys? Said Arena, and he already wanted to turn around and escape. They say she probably busy. But the girl put her hand on his shoulder. Everything is fine, on the contrary. I want your thought. He grew up mentally. At least blood from his face wiped. Creepy. Irina seriously showed him something. She had a diamond inserted directly into her forehead. It is a magical stone, and she said, it can be found in one mine. Since ancient times, these stones contain magical power. They may be able to resist Lord Am with their help. Although he thought, all these are crazy here? The same at the first scientific conference will be distributed. In the state religious, magic is a sacred power that destroys evil. But something suggested Jacob was not the last scum on the list. Put on gloves, he suggested pouring a bit of his magic into stone. He took him into his hands and tried to target his strength. In the eyes of the arena, the fire of hope broke out, but growing up, nothing happened. And then the explosion suddenly thundered. The stone flew into the priests. People near the cauldron did not understand what happened, only closed from smoke. growing rushed. Is she alive? Irino? But instead of answering him, the arena rushed, hugging firmly, his lush breasts and teeth. He grew up about himself. Well, glory came. The old man apologized for strange behavior. They say their feelings are too sharp. But he just smiled, but nothing. The main thing is that everything was done. The arena concluded that if you quickly pour magic into a stone, it explodes. Grand discovery. Grow sighed. No noble fool would dare. Only you. He suggested developing the idea further. You can create weapons from stones. Meanwhile, it's time to go to Alishi. But he felt anxious. The church grew to an incredible scale. He did not even notice when that happened. He was engulfed by the anticipation of the disaster. There were strange sounds. Where are they from? He looked into the door and saw Alish. She preached hotly. Believe in the Lord Demiurge, the Creator. Believe in his Messiah, Rice. And the crowd burst into applause. After a little, she stated, and now to sing the anthem, because he grew up, their true savior. To go the way of faith in him is miracle. And then, turning to the sinful aristocracy and the state, she proudly showed the middle finger. Usurpation of power? And how did they laugh? This is already solid madness. Alicia exclaimed in the hack of chaos, let the live Resam in our common future. A child, she added, and the crowd was excited. As a gift to a newborn, they promised to bring the head of the monarch. Pouring cold sweat, grew slowly, silently closed. Door. Going back, he whispered to himself, I heard nothing. I saw nothing. But suddenly Klaus's voice sounded behind. He reported that he had graduated from the patrol and marshal's schedule and asked if he would approve the changes. Instead of answering, he grabbed him by his shoulders and exclaimed him with relief, how glad to see him. Then he asked not to apply to him officially. Just grew up. Klaus was red, and the murmur was discouraged that he couldn't. Yes. But grew up that Klaus is a sincere man and added that he was hungry and wanted to cook food. He invited him to make a company. Klaus was surprised. Do you cook? Can I help? At this point, Belle came quietly from the room, and Yavs, which was nearby, lowered the eye down. Belle thought, yesterday was not the last. So why does the heart jump out of the breast as soon as it grows next to other girls? On the border of the kingdom of Noga, in Barrenism by Balan, this land was once called the treasure trove of honor. But lately everything has changed here. Changed on recognition. He grew up on the back of his chair. Everything went smoothly. Bonkley's lands now belonged to him. But why are they still the same name? All Jacob's relatives insisted on saving. Old name. Belle remembered that Lady Alicia spoke to them. Everyone was satisfied, so there is nothing to worry about. Meanwhile, more and more new people arrive in these lands, and it is quite logically. He grew up with everyone. There will be no food shortages, because with his magic production will increase many times over. In addition, the huge advantage is that the Duke of Avahim is their cover in case of threat. Belle, a little awkward, whispered, cover. What exactly? What happened? Asked Rice. All right? You have everything blushed. She said sharply that all was well, grabbed a tray and disappeared like a lightning, mutilating that she was very busy. Growed in a confused way. I really smell something? Relaxing, he reached out, thanking the Duke, had a few free minutes. Although, even too many. And what now? Do? Exactly. The idea broke out in the eyes. It is time for adventure. As a child, he loved books with pictures. There was always a dragon in an abandoned mine. They say there is just about nearby. It is decided. He will collect a detachment of heroes, and together they will defeat the dragon. An example of a carefree life in action. Someone find Alicia! Rice exclaimed. And come back faster! Alicia shone. She was invited to a battle with a dragon. Growing smiled. It will come out a participant of the elite detachment. She screamed to immediately fit her into the team and immediately mentioned the bed. Grow sung. We go to the abandoned mine. But she put her finger on his lips and began to flirt. Like Hermine also visited Hermine too. Growing up, that she is verse? I heard everything. The voice came from above. It was an arena that sat on a branch in front of the building. Ride asked why she couldn't just enter the door. But she just smiled and said, if they are looking for a dragon, take it from by yourself. It is a real delicacy for the families. Every year, many people die hunting the dragon's meat. What kind of cute these dragons, said Rick. And what, by the way, they taste? He asked. The arena licked her lips. How delicious chicken. Then why not eat chicken, said Rice. Because the animal are the suicides, she confirmed. But you are right. In the meantime, Alish pulled a bunch of her things, muttering something. Verena-san, let him grow from me a boy and you a girl, and we will give birth to him children. Maybe I should cure her head, he muttered. I have already tried, the arena inserted. Did not help. Only, collect the team. Klaus arrived. He was respectful, leaning, and heard that they are waiting for the battle with the dragon. He was surprised. Why didn't Bell call instead of a harem? He grew up his knees, grabbed his hands, and said, I need you. You are the only one who has not gone crazy. Bell was fluttering, and inflammatory suggested. Rose could not refuse. And here the team is collected. Magician without attacking, priest without treatment, follow-up, possibly. A warrior with a sword? More precisely, a carrier. More precisely, no. Minimal set, sighed Rice. One thought was spinning in the head. They are doomed. He was going to voice it, but the arena interrupted him. They have created a new device for using magic stone. Why not look at him until others have gathered? The outskirts of the territory of Bybel and the Starator are the settlement of the animals. The arena asked to conduct a study, and people managed great. This explosive device is completed thanks to the unsurpassed Sammy. And here is the weapon itself, a bomb. She is not inferior even to combat magicians. Verena added that for those who do not have magic, it is a real discovery. The arena agreed. The beast will use this device, and no enemy or dragon will stand. Interestingly, grunted Rice, it seems we will handle. All you have to do is wait for the dragons themselves. In a foreign territory, without an invitation, they went to defeat the dragon, just for entertainment. And here, he grew up with the team to travel. The abandoned mine turned into a full dungeon, the center of lost tombs and dangers. The first enemies did not wait long. The boys came across Goblin, and he immediately got a blow. Belle went next to Rice, illuminating the path of a torch. She asked what could help. Meanwhile, mentally noted that Klaus's skill in fencing exceeded all expectations. What about Alicia in arena? Alicia waved his sword and she jumped. Not so much Grusso imagined his perfect team. One fighter, one assassin, when he stands near a goblin with a bandage on the eye, cunningly smiled and replied, It's not. Everything is under control. Verena turned with a smile. We move on. He nodded, but something seemed too much. Easy. Alicia in intelligence. The arena carries things, and at the same time covers the rear. They have already met strong enemies, and he is still without scratch. It's time to prove that he is not just a guest in this adventure. It will be enough to stand aside. It will also show that something is worth it. Alicia turned. Ahead of the development. One trail leads to the Ligva of the mysterious Owe. Orcs! The arena exclaimed. Delicious! I really want to kill them. Claws twisted. Stinking creatures. We have gone so far, said Riss. We need to focus on the dragon. And he promised a little pork, only fell silent. Alicia replied that then it would be better to eat Rice himself. Belle wanted to say it was too, but she didn't have time. Everyone froze. Strange sounds came from the depth of the passage. What is it? It doesn't look like a victim. Is what really thought of? For the first time in a long time, some fool wants to contact him. It was a real dragon. He grew up. What is it? Belle whispered that she was scared, and Klaus pointed to the trail. The sound from there. Getting beside me, Riss said. I count on you. And they ran to sound sources. Growing and the dragon met. Is it? Dragon thieves himself? Dragon was looking at the group. Young women. Fresh meat. Still the victim? Like cute, the dragon said. They brought me food. He revealed the mouth. Let me taste this freshness. Who is the first? The one and happy, Alish smiled. The dragon frowned. Too little. Only a snack? He opened his mouth and swallowed the cube that exploded inside him. Sugar smiles appeared on the boys' faces. Everyone shouted, To him! At it! The dragon became angry. It can't be! Me! I will the owner of all living things? Flying into the air, he roared, My fire will destroy everything. There will be no living here. Life was allegedly established. He grew his hand like a real hero. Do you think to avoid my poisonous breathing? Said the dragon. I'm a demon. I do not poison me. But he grew up. It's not poison. What you swallowed is flour from the flesh and bones of cows. Now it is clear why that powder is so stinking of cattle. You're already dead, whispered with a smile. Dragon in panic, what did you do? He began to fell from the inside. There was not enough air. What is happening? The cheeks and stomach of the dragon were getting more and more, and so foam poured from the mouth, chaos from the eyes. A moment, and the explosion spread everything around. A few hours later, he rolled back into the city with the heroes. The dragon was overcome. The bomb worked properly, and grew up without spending time with the help of magic resurrected from a piece of body. A little dragon, that snock on the knees of Alicia. TSS, quietly, he reassured him. Probably hungry. The cubs are always cute. But this did not like beef. The demanding baby. Alicia hugged him gently. Call me a mom. Only the eyes are left with the eyes. Arena, well, say something. Turned to her. But the arena, full of nowhere, did not even hear it. And Klaus, meanwhile, sat next to Belle. Battle side by side left behind something more. Connection. And he grew in the sky. Seriously? Was that legendary dragon? Just a giant lizard? But when the gaze fell on a small dragon, she was in her head. Pity. If the big was so weak, let the baby eat normal. The whole battle lasted only 3 minutes. A few days have passed. The Babylon Baronism drowned in peace. He grew up and remembered how everything happened. Alicia looked at the baby, whom she called the Doratarot Tian. Give the name, then it will be harder to eat, the arena jammed. I will not eat it, Alicia was indignant. Quietly there, he muttered. Well, say, what do you think about? The arena leaned. He grew, look at her breasts, and immediately took his eyes. Nothing like that. He just thought about the future of Babylon's lands. His medical magic gave them food, but there are still no tourists. With such a reputation of the region, it is not surprising. There will be no change without guests. A new range of development is needed. Maybe cultural exchange with forest settlers, suggested the arena. They are there. Bombs are crazy. Or the theological courses in the temple, Alicia added. He only sighed. Too risky. But the farm with dragons for entertainment and dishes is interesting. But there is no lake or sea in their lands. Unless in the east, beyond the mountains, there is an ocean. But those mountains tea with monsters. Anyway, it can work, he thought. 2 weeks later, the tunnel is in the midst of the construction. Already punched? Klaus asked. He nodded. Due to the magic that heals fatigue, and the explosives that destroy the mountains, but most of all, thanks to people who worked selflessly. Growing was sincerely grateful to them. You need your help, they called him. He grew up and he caught fire from enthusiasm. Let's harm here. I will restore everything. And here it appears. Giant. What happened? The black-haired gunsman explained that they were almost fed. But it takes a little more energy. He won't die from overvoltage? Risa flashed in his head. Fatigue disappears. The muscles are tense. Everything is in chocolate, he exclaims as if God was descending to the earth. Everyone just got caught. He looked at him. What's going on for the devil here? The silhouette began to decrease as if the air came out of hypertrophic dandelion. And here he is ordinary again. Grow came. All is well? He replied calmly. The weight is normal, I go on. With one blow, he healthy pierced a piece of wall. The stone fell, like sand. He looked at him with anxiety. Did he create a monster? Someone still called him, and he looked around sharply. Other workers came to him. They say they want the same. Grew up with his hands. First let the movie look. And in a moment, a real wonder awaited them. They reached the coast. The tunnel to the ocean is complete. A plan immediately appeared in Rice's head. A port from the Afro Brigade and their dream resort. Alicia approached him and hugged gently, whispering, Once we are already by the sea, maybe we will dress in swimwear? Urena grabbed her by her shoulders. No, can't into water without a conductor. Grew up that their outfits and so looked like a beach outfit. Meanwhile, something from the ocean waves, or someone, followed them. To attract tourists, they punched the tunnel through the mountain right up to the shore. But on the other coast, there was already a magnificent resort. Now it is necessary to repel customers. So there was a plan in Rice. We work with pleasure, he announced. Although it was a study, not a rest. The arena has already come in a swimsuit with a ball. Let's play. Klaus lifted his eyebrows. Beach ball? The arena assured. Everything was checked. The beach is safe. They say even the crackers live here, someone added. He grew up. Kraken? Damn, forgot about him. This is a threat to the future resort. But on the other hand, the dragon won, and Kraken think. Everything is clear, Riss said. If necessary, we will destroy the sea monster. That's right. Thanks to magic, RIS will be able to create tiny krakens from large meat. A resort with a beach where you can play with a little kraken. A dream becomes a reality. The girls whispered. That kraken probably terroves the territory of Paleocid. If you are tamed, you can create a legion. The enemy fleet simply will not stand. But to cause it, you need a mound and fun. Alicia called Rice to swim. Or maybe they play the beach ball. She ran her breasts so that the ball was already near the heart. It grew red from such unambiguous flirting. But he quenched himself. Her body is like music, but her head is like a horror movie. We must act reasonably. Until it is more normal. The finger will not touch. And here the arena shouted. The ball with a frantic whistle flew over his head and spread the stone behind. The hero is fossil, and her body is like a tent, but she will probably get under his aura of common sense. Irina exclaimed that she wanted to become the first girl Rice. Alicia smiled and said that she was not sorry to be a favorite. She is the best girlfriend. Grode. That is that. Victory? Or way back into the loser zone? And then Klaus called out, "Something is chosen from the ocean." Belle screamed. Everyone immediately from the water. Giant tentacles suddenly escaped from the waves. One of them aimed at Rice, but Klaus heroically repulsed him and fell on the sand. Gro looked around and shouted to, "But I didn't have time. The tentacles have already been seized by Diren and Alish." The spectacle was both creepy and hypnotic at the same time. The girls shouted like Slippery, and the tentacles were already climbing on swimwear. Darina gnawed that slippery evil. It was the Sea Lord himself. Crazy Kraken. He grew up a little dragon to attack, but even the Lord of the Sky could not help. The baby was powerless. The girls shouted Riss, "Help them!" He thought, it's bad. Very bad. At first it seemed not serious, but Kraken turned out to be strong. It's time to finish it. With a bomb. But an explosive wave can affect girls. The only option is healing through magic. The gaze fell on the sea hedgehog. Here it is, a solution. He turned to Claus and Belle and ordered the preparation of explosives. Although it was dangerous, he had to go alone. Self won. But he believes in the power of the sea. He has medicinal magic, and he is not afraid to apply it. He shouted to let everyone run away and waved his hand. The boys went away. Kraken looked at Rice, and he raised his hand. And the magic poured into the guy's hedgehogs, clinging to the monster to suffocate. His magic has evolved. Now it affects even simple creatures. It's not just healing. Sharp hedgehogs rushed to the attack. He grew up, it worked, and he promised them yet brood. Kraken was crazy about an unexpected attack. He grew up the star, and realized that it was not all. The stars began to multiply, and with them, the natural enemies of coral. The tentacles weakened, the girls finally released. And the jellyfish and the fish jelly arranged a grand ending, a real marine apocalypse. Kraken got on all sides. The girls ran up to Rice, shouting joyfully, "He saved them!" Behind them, Klaus and Belle ran, carrying a whole cart of explosives. Growing turned to everyone and said, "They will do it. They will protect the peaceful life of the ocean." And babahi! Explosive cubes flew straight into the crater. A powerful explosion, and Kraken disappeared in flares. They did it. The world returned to the calm waters of the ocean again. Although the shore was littered with dead fish and stars, there was no loss, but Gru hoped that the Mother Nature would withstand. 2 months have passed. In the land's pileside prevailed. The girls stood sharply from the table. What does the fish population catastrophically fall? The old man lowered his head. Strange information came. But the girl exploded. There is no benefit from him. She squeezed his fists. Okay, she will show what Lady Silica Paleside is capable of. Standing on a rock, washed waves, she cursed pirates and poverty. Recently, she was swimming in luxury, and now hungry. Suddenly, someone called her by name. There were men at a distance. One of them introduced himself as Rias Babylon, and stated that he had come to condemn her as a bad Lady Paleside. The girl's hands were tied. The sun shakes to the horizon, and it cries silently. 2 days before, Rice sighed with relief. Klaus approached him and asked if everything was fine. Rice looked into the ocean. Thoughts of Kraken were not rest. Klaus replied that it was impossible to predict. They did not know that the monster existed at all. Rice nodded. He also suspected anything, and who could think that this giant Kraken was just a baby? Klaus added that he did not know that babies could be such giants. Rice did not understand how such a terrifying creature was to attract tourists. But it is good, though, he ordered Kraken to sail. He always dreamed of managing life with magic, and constantly spoiled everything. But nothing. He will still come up with entertainment for tourists. In the meantime, Klaus asked why he came. Rice was alert. Does Klaus want to betray? After all, Jacob was betrayed. Rice decided to act carefully and asked to speak openly. Klaus took Rice by his hands. The young man was confused. What is it now? Klaus kneeled, lowered his head, and began to beg. He was scared. He was afraid that Rice would push him away one day, and Rice thought that he had helped little lately. Rice put his hand on his shoulder and said, "You are not just a subordinate. You are my friend. And friends are not required to be useful." Klaus moved it, and Rice asked me mentally, "Just didn't betray again." Somewhere on the side, the girl was silently watching. She was embarrassed, but wrote everything in her notebook. Rice noticed how the girl hastily closed the notebook. She was caught by surprise. She justified that she was just drawing, because it is now fashionable. Reyes understood her, and Bell reported that Alicia was already waiting for him in the harbor. He was surprised. "So it's time to go." He called Klaus. He replied that he would spend it. Bell wandered behind, writing something in a notebook. They headed to the harbor of Babylon, which was still being built. Alicia waved the district from the shore. Smiling, she grabbed his hand and said she was waiting. Then she stated that they need to talk and collect stones. Reyes was confused. The voice of the arena is distracted by him. She called the district to the ship. Something was there. On the vessel of Majors, a black flag with a skull. The arena noticed that it was loaded. Something was being prepared. Reyes tensed. Still, it was just starting to adjust. And here's a new mess. But he remembered that half of his people were former criminals. Stop them late. Everyone stared at the ship. Marina closed her fingers in the binoculars. It looked like only a few people on the ship. Reyes also looked. People were screaming on board. Maybe they are in trouble. Klaus suspected the trap and asked to be more careful. Reyes decided that perhaps pirates could be convinced. And suddenly there is an epidemic or something else? Being from Babylon means helping everyone, regardless of race or status. The servants were fond of their leader. The pirates were mooring. One of them stated that they were transporting slaves, but a plague broke out on board. They did not want to pollute their hands, so they asked the area to do a dirty work. They offered money. One of the subordinates could not stand. They had to be destroyed. And others supported him, rushing forward. Reyes realized that the pirates were just hiding. The slaves looked quite healthy. His people ran on the water. The pirates did not believe their eyes. One subordinate hit the pirate so that he flew in the opposite direction. In his eyes, anger. Others were already on board. They flew to the ship with one jump. And there is still full of pirates. One of the pirates shouted, "Who are you?" But he was interrupted by the captain. He ordered not to touch the guests. He added, "No matter whether they can fly or not," and reached for weapons. The captain snatted a saber and promised to get uninvited guests. But swinging, he saw the blade crawling in half, not inflicting scratches. He froze in shock. Other pirates were no less puzzled. The subordinates were just smiling. One of them has already kneaded his fists. The prisoners looked exhausted. They thanked for the salvation, not believing that it happened. One of the rescued said that Reyes not only released them, but also cured wounds. The hero silently reached out, and the soft glow of magic enveloped the victims. After finishing, he answered modestly. It was a trifle, and he asked how they were captured. One of them said that all of them, fishermen from different villages, which were grabbed by the pirates during the sea. The other added, drunken pirates said they would be sold for redemption by Lady Palisade. Verena said that the abduction of fishermen is not the same as the arrest of criminals. It is a crime against innocent. Reyes thought. The life of the fishermen is really difficult, and if they are not found, they will be recognized as dead. He crossed his hands. This is undoubtedly crime, and a great opportunity to get a competitor, the resort of Palelicide. He mentioned that the resort of Palelicide was near the Babylon beach, and now he had a compromise. Smiling, Reyes thought it was a chance to lure customers. He was indifferent what magic is owned by Palisade. He would use his own, as always. He turned to the rescued. Would they continue to endure in silence? He will show what he can do. One of the fishermen wept. He said, even to speak, no one has no matter. Reyes replied that they had forgotten who he was. Let him pass his rage and despair. He will stand everything. Friends looked at. They were ready to support him. Reyes said, it is decided that they go to Palisade. Meanwhile, in the possessions of Palisade, the hostess sat with his head, crying. The servants gathered in front of the house, waiting for her words. The hostess sobbed, complaining about the collapse of fish catch, the destroyed reefs, the main highlight of the resort, and a number of strange incidents in the waters around. The servant carefully wiped sweat from her forehead. He tried to explain that they found the causes of all the events, but the hostess interrupted. She knew everything. She even ordered the pirates to protect the coast. She was angry that those pirates had disappeared, and the locals were helpless. The servant suggested contacting the local government. The answer was sharp: there will be no meeting. This official only wants fault. The servant should say that she was sick and did not get out of bed all night. The hostess stood on a high rocky ledge above the ocean, looked down and complained. Why did it happen during her reign? And soon she had a meeting with the Babylon Rise. One of her people whispered that Kraken was a real monster from the depths in the waters of Pelelisid. They were already changing the routes of ships but the mistress was just sobbing. A whole bunch of his cubs appeared suddenly. She barely restrained the hysterical cry. Through Kraken's baby, all tourism and fishing is completely destroyed, and the local feudal lords, instead of help, dumped all responsibility for it. The hostess, although smart, had only one idea: to hang someone like a bait and distract Kraken somewhere away. She even agreed on the victim with pirates, not to get into even more troubles. Meanwhile, the ship went through the waves. Someone asked that there. Silica noticed a pirate ship, and she was sincerely glad that they had returned. The girl started waving from a high rock. She stood on a stone, trying to attract attention. She continued to wave. Rise asked why she was welcome with that vessel. In his opinion, there are some nobles on board. He suspiciously raised his hands on his chest. Along with him stood Alicia and smiled, as if she knew everything in advance. Rise pretended. They have evidence, witnesses. Even the resources for a year of judicial battles will be enough. A great opportunity to make a little compensation. He raised his hand and ordered to go forward. They needed to deliver the insidious hostess to court. Together with the team, he approached Silica and introduced himself. He said he had come to pass the sentence. The girl was confused. She was accused. She did not understand what was happening. She remembered that Babylon was just a hole. What did her ruler think there? Rise thought, if she resists, he will turn her people against her. He laughed inside, almost like a real villain. Silica realized. The pirates, apparently, loose everything. She tried to keep calm. It is still her element, her ocean. She thoughtfully decided that everything should be denied. She got up and stated loudly that she was not interested in who he was. He would not be able to prevent her. At that moment, the wave rose to the sky. Everyone froze in surprise. Rise asked, "What was it?" Silica replied boldly that they did not expect one. "It is a magician, gifted by nature. And does he understand how strong she is?" Rise smiled. It struck. Silica boldly stated that the people of the region were in great danger. But he did not understand what it was about. Meanwhile, all his associates rushed to the shore. Someone shouted that tsunami was coming. The arena with indignation asked Alicia if she was completely stupid. But she just shrugged. They say all the aristocrats, except for the district and Genheim, are just as follows. It's time to call for help. Silica smiled mysteriously. It was only a warm-up. She has already prepared a new magical attack. A huge mucus balls appeared behind her back. They flew directly to the heroes. Plaus stepped forward and told the area to keep up with him. It would be hot. Silica stretched her hands forward. Her magic was about to explode with new power. Plaus instantly cut the volatile mucus balls. One of the warriors covered the area with the body. The attack was neutralized. Alicia with Belle began to throw daggers simply in the mucusans. Several of them exploded in the air. One of the daggers almost touched the Silica. It had time to bounce, but the strand of hair flew into the air. Perina almost got it. Irina ran close. She shouted that she caught her. Serena had already squeezed his fist for blow. Silica tried hastily to activate the protective spell and gave everything to retreat immediately. The mucus sphere suddenly appeared around the fist of the arena. She did not even have time to understand how it happened. But the arena was not lost. She rushed forward and repelled without fear. Silica asked herself with surprise what was going on. Is an ordinary girl able to withstand her magic? Rise also did not understand. Stupid, but strong. Therefore, dangerous. They looked at each other. No one was going to retreat. Rays gathered magical power. If it goes, finish everything with one reception. But Silica was just silent. She smiled. And suddenly she screamed, "It seems." I kneel, asked for mercy. Rays frozen, did not believe in his ears. All the views have come to her. Rays wanted to say directly what would be now. But Silica interrupted him. What do they need? She decided that they wanted to bite a piece of her power, but the area intervened instantly, directly asked whether she ordered the pirates to steal the fishermen. Silica bounced back, shocked. She asked with confusion, "Why then those fishermen are still alive?" The victims were to be brought. Rise specified. "It is about the fishermen she gave to the donation?" He exclaimed with indignation that her plan was deeply immoral. Silica began to lose the soil under her feet. She screamed that she had no choice. Kraken was guilty of everything. She added in tears. Through these creatures, there was the invasion of jellyfish, sea hedgehogs, and stars. Everything came out of control. Coral reefs were killed. An ecosystem on the border. Raza silently admitted. In fact, he started it all. He looked at his comrades and realized that they were probably also aware of it. Alicia, meanwhile, thought that everything was under the plan of the Raza-sama. It is acting for the sake of the glory of Bibello. The arena believed that he was skillfully driving the enemy to the wall. Bell decided that he had calculated everything. And Plaus believed that Kraken was growing intentionally. Everyone overestimated the district. Rise returned to Silica and said that he finally understood her. She was not guided by himself, but tried to protect her people. Silica nodded. She was still on her knees and confirmed. She did everything for the sake of people. She was even ready to pollute her hands to save them. But she thought herself is not true. Rise turned to the fishermen. What do they think about it? After all, they were injured. One of them replied that although Silica was cruel, it could be understood. Another added, to pay compensation. Silica gladly agreed. She had hope. She sharply translated the conversation to the main thing, the problem with Kraken. But the rail came and said not to worry. He himself was powerful. He put his hand on her shoulder. A few days have passed. On the beach of Palside, calm reigned again. The water was transparent, reefs were restored. People returned to normal life. Silica rejoiced. She said, "That's the power of the district. He is a real hero." The kids saw him and shouted with delight, "This is Grebe." People surrounded the area. Someone thanked the rescue of reefs, others, for the fact that fishing came to life again. Everyone praised his strength. One said it was incredible. He not only won Kraken, but tamed and gave them to people. The other added that the races in the Krakens, a real hit. Silica tried to see the district through the crowd, but someone from the crowd shouted that she did nothing. The other replied that she heard everything. Celise was painful. She clasped his fists and then rushed. I was sobbing, and she shouted that she also wanted to be popular. But the crowd did not pay attention to her. Already in the Silica office wrote a letter. I decided. It's time to take feats. She can also solve several problems and become a heroine. After finishing the letter, she put him in an envelope and, in the room, one of the men exclaimed, "Is it true? Countess Silica Palisade disappeared." The girl replied that Silica left the letter. In it, she asked to transfer her lands to the Babo region. The man was dissatisfied with the fact that he did not want to have a neighbor. He stated that he was going to intervene in the case in person. The servant asked carefully, "Seriously?" He confirmed, "I am sure. Everything goes according to plan." He was interrupted by the girl, mentioning Viscount Snail from the possessions of Gango. The man called the rotten aristocracy. He added that someone had already crossed the road. Returning to the district, he said that he should show how to act with similar ones. Rise just smiled. He thought that apparently the sea breeze was good at this type of head. But he did not spoil his mood. Meanwhile, in the possession of Babylon, Rai held a letter in his hands. He said he was finally the time. Babylon's reputation was spoiled and ignored him for years. But here is the first official invitation to the reception. Reyes raised his hands up and shouted, "Finally!" After Joy sat down and thought. It was finally recognized. His efforts were not ignored. It was pleased. Before the eyes, the image of Silica, who said that his power is worthy of rule the lands of Palisade. Reyes realized that he just became the owner of the possessions of the Repentance. His possession has increased significantly. Did he become a real lord now? At this point, Bell Noct reported that Alicia Sama, other girls, and even a tailor came. Alicia turned to the district. He heard that he called her, so she came. The arena asked if help needed. Reyes explained that he received an invitation to the score from Viscount Django Sneal. His estate bordered with them, just near the mines, where they won the dragon. He wanted Alicia and Irina to accompany him. The girls were happy. Alicia asked if it was considered to be a personal invitation. The arena added that she also did not mind accompanying. Both came to the area close. He tried to mentally remove them, but still stopped them and asked not to draw hasty conclusions. This is only for etiquette. He was awkward, but he thought, beautiful girls will emphasize his status as best. Then Rise addressed the tailor. He asked to create a suit for him, in a girlish style. The tailor looked at his hands and said that he once angered the royal family. He was cut off his fingers and kicked out of the yard. But now he will make the suit perfect for the district Sam, which has returned his glory. Rise thought, wonderful. Finally, he will be able to show himself as a real lord of Babylon lands. There was only a pity, he knows no one there. But he could take someone with him. On the same evening, someone said, everything goes according to the Duke's plan. The young man asked if Zhang accurately wanted to make friends with Dono. Alicia replied that it was a very subtle observation. She continued, Viscount Django Snail, a typical corrupt Vladiman. It should be eliminated as soon as possible, Irina asked in surprise. Is sabotage planned at the ball, even with her and the protection of Silica Rise in danger? The young man assured that it was not necessary to panic. Having accepted the invitation, Rizzo Dono made an ideal strategic move. He corrected the glasses. The month has passed. In the possession of Visconta Snilel, there was a luxurious reception. One of the aristocrats asked, is the heir to Babylon really appear? The other replied that he accepted the invitation, but who knows if he had something to wear. The woman added that she was more interesting to whom he would come with. Apparently some gray mouse. Their conversation interrupted the man, asking. He said it is better not to look forward. It was Viscount Django Sneal, a 30-year-old holiday master. He asked if they were sorry for Rai Khan. The woman thanked that they had the opportunity to enjoy his society. Window continued. The district will soon appear, and then everyone will see what a real etiquette means. They raised glasses. The door opened. Reyes, Alicia, and Irina were included. The guests turned. Someone said, they just got to the ball. Reyes specified whether they were the last. Window was angry. Brick your eyes, what does it mean? The woman asked if it was the heir to Babylon's possessions. The man in glasses noted that the companions are very beautiful, though they are dressed too extravagant. Alicia bowed and introduced herself, saying that she was accompanying the district. She is only a common man, and she is a great honor to be here. Irina also introduced. She added, only Razdono has the right to lead her for this score. One of the guests was frightening that he brought a common man and a wild woman. However, he could not deny, the girls were beautiful, as if the sun and the moon. Window was annoyed. Reyes was quietly approaching him. Window sarcastically asked where the Baron of the district was so much arrogance. He raged because he was taller than the title. Reyes recalled how Uncle Gunheim always talked to him in a friendly manner, and he forgot the manners for a long time. Raza apologized and said that he rarely happens, so he lost his skills. But Window was in anger. He thought that the district was smiling at him and understands why he was invited, as he dared to dress so and bring such showy companions. Reyes only recalled that Viscount had just told his superiority. Maybe he's tired. Viscount raised his hand to hit the area, insulting it. Rise did not understand why such aggression. At this point, someone exclaimed, enough! Viscount was even more angry, began to shout at the one who stopped him, and here a voice came. It was the Duke of Goenheim. Window shuddered. The Duke was clearly angry. Goenheim turned to Snile, ordered to listen carefully. He asked if it was worthy of quarreling and trying to put the spell right at the reception. The Duke added that it is a loud scandal that can be found in the dungeon. Sneal began to justify himself. They say it was a joke. Viscount also dared to ask why the Duke appears to appear at a modest reception. In his soul, he despised Goenheim, considering him semi-grain without magic. The Duke replied that he had arrived at the invitation of the district as an accompanying one. He approached the district, specified or so. He nodded and apologized for the hassle. Irina whispered, now it is clear what is the best solution. Alicia agreed. She added, let the Duke without magic. His authority in the higher society is undeniable. Alicia said with a smile that in all circumstances, Riza-sama will cope. He lifted a glass and suggested that everyone drink for dating. Viscount silently boiled. They say, he captured his own holiday. The holiday was completed. The noble guests drank, had fun, drank again. In the hall of the estate of Django Reyes, he kept a glass of wine and thought, it was the first time that he was invited by another aristocrat. However, he did not like it here. He looked at other guests. It is not his circle. Rise regretted that Uncle Gernheim called. The Duke clasped him on his back and said that there was nothing to worry. Here is full of people, but they should not be afraid. Rise bowed and thought that he should have reconciled with the master of the holiday. He went to the table where Viscount stood. He was supported by smiling Alicia and Irina. They stood a little on the side, ready for everything. Rise turned to Sneal. He turned and, with disdain, called him Barren Rise with his maid. Then he tasted himself. Rise and his companion. Window asked what he needed from him. Rise felt his hands trembling a little. Is he sick? Rise with a smile replied that he just wanted to say hello. If Viscount was tired, he could rest and order. He will take on himself. Sneal is indignant. What, Rise wants to remove him from his own holiday? Rise himself did not understand why he was so screaming. He was genuinely worried about the owner's health. And he asked himself, what is here? Rise understood. Not everything is so easy with Window. He looked at the girls. Alicia and Irina laughed, hearing the rudeness from Sneal. He fiercely exclaimed that they were not allowed to laugh at him. Rise thought, again, dissatisfied. He concluded, this Window is emotionally unstable, and it is time to show all the aristocrats who here is the true master of the situation. Rise decided to reassure the Windows first. He assured him that he would not allow anyone to mock him, even because of such an original hairstyle. But Window became angry even more. He insulted the district loudly until he saw the Duke of Gernheim laughs. Sneal thought that Rise specifically provokes him. It seemed to him that this parody aristocrat wanted to bring him out of balance. He stated that the village guy did not understand the grandeur of his hairstyle. Rise shrugged. Really, I didn't understand. Viscount decided that everything, the point of non-return, was traveled. Raza with a smile added that what is on Sneal's head is just a desperate attempt to collect the remains of hair in something like a hairstyle. The guests laughed. The indignant Viscount exclaimed that he was tired, and if the area does not shut up, he will lower the dragon from his territory. Rise calmly replied that he also had a dragon. Viscount shouted that it was a brazen lie, and demanded evidence. Rise wondered if Sneal was in mind the dragon from the abandoned mine. The awareness stunned him. He accidentally killed a pet of Visconta. Rise carefully wondered if he was really attached to the dragon. Sneal replied that yes. In the opinion of Rise, he wondered, who is at all attached to the walking fighting machine? The hero decided that he would push him another dragon instead of the killed, and maybe he would become more affectionate. Rise returned to Viscount and said he wanted to establish good neighborly relationship, if possible. Sneal replied that it is good that Rise understands it. He added that it was time to recognize his grandeur and try to gain affection. Rise willingly agreed. He recalled that Viscount had already tried to impose a spell on him, and to be honest, you can get a prison. But he is generous. Forgive. So, Dawn? Viscount exploded. He fiercely attacked the district, but he did not have time. He clapped his face into the floor. Rise did not even have time to realize what happened. One of the guests suggested that the windows were faint. Another exclaimed, a doctor is urgently needed. And the third said that he could burst aneurysm. Alicia, without restraining, laughed with Irina. The Duke Goenheim, standing away, laughed quietly. Rise was delighted. Another wonderful opportunity to gain Victory's commitment. He suggested cure him with magic. But he was interrupted by a servant who apologized and announced that Viscount was already carrying on stretchers. The servant added that he would recommend Mr. Sneal not to call the guests when he feels bad. Rise thought, and seconds did not pass, but already benefit. The Duke, smiling, said, a wonderful way out of the situation. Rise replied that it seems Viscount was not in humor. The Duke went, and the district continued to be in the spotlight. The Duke asked the district whether he had arranged all this holiday to cheer him up. He thought that he was avenging aristocrats for disrespect. Rise asked what was being talked about, and the Duke smiled mysteriously. The Duke lifted a glass and drank from Babylon. He said that he was glad, and Rise thanked and promised, the path to world glory is just beginning. Alicia and Irina were watching them. Rise suggested that the Duke return to the estate together, but he only answered with a smile. The night is still young, and it is time to arrange the wine river. Friends left the feast unnoticed, and already in the estate of Lord Babylona Rise slept, clutching his face into the table. Alicia and Ina sat side by side, and the Duke laughed. They say, even the strongest characters did not stand a few glasses. Alicia noted that he was clearly not accustomed to drinking. Bell came with a tray of drinks. Irina praised delicious drinks and asked the Duke, not he was not biased to the animal? The Duke replied that discrimination due to the lack of magic is pure madness. Irina reported that the fences were ready to convey a bomb recipe. Duke became interested. They say is the same mysterious tool? She agreed, but only with the permission of the district. Alicia added that the Duke had helped them by holding back information about Babylon's language. The Duke confessed that he did not want the capital to find out about the state of the region. But he added, the ministers also worked well. He remembered how a spy praised one girl, and he promised that when the time of battle came, he would not retreat. He clenched his fist. Everyone looked around, and the Reaper was still asleep. A new intrigue was already ripe under his nose. On the shore of Babylon's waters, Race sat with a fishing rod. The dragon was nailing on his head. The hero sighed. The chance to make a good impression on the aristocracy was lost. Instead of a triumph, a nervous breakdown. The float moved. Race pulled the fishing rod and said he would be different next time, because he will become the owner of the ball. But for this, he will need a gift of conviction, or the wealth of his lands. If he and the Duke invites him, then most nobles will come. But here the dragon pulled the catch, and it was a bad creature. Rise with reproach asked the dragon that he was doing. He was embarrassed. Raise thought that a lot of wood would be needed to rebuild the city. The field stretched before him, and he said is the perfect place. He threw the fishing rod on his shoulder, knocked it on the ground, put on gloves, and began to create magic. Compost, division, disputes, multiplication, regeneration. In a moment, a thick forest grew in front of him. Rise left. His magic was useful again. But this is not just treatment for a long time. He remembered that since the proclamation of the apostle, his magic reserve has only grown. Ray stood up. It's time to act. Plows specified is the redevelopment of the territory. Rays confirmed. All they have is thanks to the efforts of the Babylon people. And mentally praised himself, the great lord, sitting at the table nearby. Alicia and the window guarded Darren, and Klaus stood in the front. Rice asked if they really agree to work together. Friends nodded. They were determined to support him to the end. Irene was in surprise. They really build a castle in the center of the territory? Rice replied that something type is, but he was not sure whether the castle was talking about. The appearance did not worry him. The main thing is that the party succeeded, and though someone came to it. Glaus noted that then they did not have a special choice with planning, so now you need to think carefully. Alicia's eyes shone. She knew who would help them accurately. Rice immediately wondered who exactly. She answered mysteriously, God. Rice was surprised. If he was trusted by the palace, there will be no doubt about his skill. Rice suggested, why not copy the royal palace? The idea was liked. Irene called it brilliant. She had already imagined that the arrogant rich would flake from anger when they see a black castle. The girl covered her eyes from the imaginary glow. Alicia burst into tears from happiness. Life is really wonderful, she explained. Black is the color of demiurges. Both she and all other believers will follow him to the very end. Rice thought that everything was planning, although most of the residents here were the former rags. In addition, when copying the palace, he showed modesty and devotion to the royal family. The idea slept in the opinion by accident, but it was just perfect. He stood sharply. Rice stated that it was impossible to delay. It is time to start. Everyone unanimously agreed. There were a lot of work, and Rice just wanted to organize a party. Everyone left the office, leaving it. He sat down again. I realized that the materials would need a lot more than he initially planned. Stones are the main resource. Paradise got up and approached the window. Now the dragon's workouts should become even more intense, so that he can help with heavy loads as soon as possible. It's been 3 months. On the border of the possessions of Snail Django, courageous voices were heard. One of the men shouted to wait a little. They were almost in place. Others responded with approving exclamations. But one still swore, and cursed the Earl of Snail, who was madly angry. Someone from the detachment swore, the day will come when he will destroy the Graph. The boundaries of the Babalan territory have already been surrounded by a high and thick fence. The beard exclaimed to the rest to wait a little. The other encouraged everyone. It is not long. It is time to show what dwarves are capable of. A voice was barely audible from the crowd. Maybe it is better to escape? After all, Babylon's lands were known for their horrible glory, but the leader cut them roughly, to remain silent. Their words only knock out faith in themselves. He recalled that this pumpkin is already defeated. Everything is destroyed now their chance. And he promised never to forgive the abuse on the lands of Gango. In those days, they lived hard. One day, Mr. asked the dwarves whether they really wanted to improve the quality of his food. One of them, standing on the top, replied with despair, "Without normal food, they just die." The owner began to mock, they say, "The dwarves, like some savages, only demand." But one of the humiliated laughed, "They are still worthless than them." This was angered by the master. Gnome said, "Even worse those who lose their sense of fear." And the gentleman, as the lord, just had to give them everything he needed. He exploded with rage. A worthless slave dared to argue. Such has no right to even speak. He raised his hand and destroyed the brave with magic, shouting that it was a dirty, hairy animal that needs to be erased. Others were stunned, lost their work. The owner, boiling with anger, said he would like to burn everyone to the ground, and the dragon could. He stopped, went closer to one and threw it. Today he will spare him, and he should be grateful. Then left. After all, the leader of the dwarves told his comrades that even in hell he would be better than under the authority of such a tyrant. Everyone supported him. One assured that they had the talent of blacksmiths, the other, that together they will withstand even the worst. The leader glowed with joy. His team is ready for everything. He shouted, "Let's go this path, and we will be free." They moved confidently, but suddenly the leader, whom everyone called the Mane, stopped sharply. His face has changed. Others were surprised. They began to quarrel what happened, what he suddenly stopped. Going closer, everyone saw where he looked and fell. They opened a view to a huge, prosperous city. The city turned out to be incredibly huge and not at all like a ruin. It stunned everyone. Men began to ask the main thing in surprise. It should be the Dead Land. How is it possible? Suddenly, they noticed something giant that flew to them. When the creature approached, they understood. It is a real dragon, and a guy with dark eyes sat on it. He, without getting out of the dragon, shouted to the shaded men and asked if they escaped from somewhere. Those sincerely confessed, yes, they escaped. And they asked to get off the dragon because it is dangerous to the absurd. The guy only stroked the dragon and replied, "All is well, because he is a pet of Baibayon." The dwarves were drowned. He explained, "This is part of the program of saddled dragons, which is fully managed by the large rice." He then announced that they would have to fly on the dragon because time to enter the city. One of the men was enthusiastically asked if it was Rice himself. The guy jumped from the dragon to the ground. He approached him and burned angrily. "For you, I, Rice, not just Rice. You will call without the title. You will die a painful death." The man was frightened, giggled, and stopped. The other approached and asked, "Does Rice himself help such low races as they are?" The guy replied, "He will be guilty of it." Then he clarified, "Rice is merciful and accepts everyone without exception. It was he who saved everyone from oppression. Everyone calls it the owner." People stood, looking at the one who so sweetly sang the owner. Meanwhile, the owner's old estate happened. Rice himself was busy when Alish suddenly began to call him named. She ran up, holding something in her hands, the Rice's baby panties found, and gently asked if she could leave them. Rice sighed heavily and aloud. Alicia jumped with happiness, promising to protect them all his life. Rice sighed again and said that Irene had closed in the warehouse, although the owner himself was already moving to the castle, so things should be packed closer. Meanwhile, Klaus called Rice and reported that he had already brought all the books and materials from the estate, neatly sorted by genres. Nearby was a girl named Belle. Rice approached the guy with boxes and praised him, they say. There is still no equal Klaus. He was already confused by such praise. Then Klaus looked into the box and said that he found something interesting there during sorting. He handed over the old photo. His father was on it. The guy grabbed the photo and said that he had long lost this picture with his late parents. Most likely it was made on the day of their wedding. Fowles said his mother had to be incredibly beautiful. He wanted to tell what he remembers in the words wedding and chats, but Rice did not let him finish. Rice broke him. They say his mother was crazy, met his father at the bar when both were drunk. But nevertheless, they were the only URL. Klaus was red, apologized, and quietly added that the baby was born in marriage. Rice nodded. It usually happens. Suddenly, a maid entered the room and reported an urgent case that she had poured into the dragon's nucleus. Klaus and Rice himself exchanged surprised views. They left the photo on the table and went to the core. While walking, the maid quickly explained the situation. Rice mentioned that many fugitives from the territories of Django settled here. When he arrived, one of the men said, "If Rice conceived something, let him do." He promised that he would not turn them back, but would do something else for them. Rice directed his magical power simply to men, and at the same moment, all wounds, burns, and fatigue from their bodies disappeared. Restorative magic eventually. The dwarves were glad, but they felt that they were now obliged to thank. But Rice reassured them. Nothing needed except for one. They are definitely hungry. Rice immediately ordered the maid to feed everyone, but she replied that she was already cooking. The guy thought, if you be kind to them, they will do everything you say. Then he sighed and admitted, whatever it was, the snail was really disgusting. But suddenly he was worried. He remembered that he killed the hand dragon of the snail and completely forgot to replace him with new ones. However, he quickly came up with a solution. Everyone will work after opening the camp near the lock. Meanwhile, on the lands of Gango, the situation was tense. Lord was screaming at his subordinate. He tried to explain that the gentleman has no reason to be angry, and health is no longer. Lord shouted that he wanted nothing to listen, and expelled him out of the room. Lord's distorted face said, he is about to capture Baibalan territory, and no one will stop him. Meanwhile, the border of the kingdom of Noga, Babalan lands belonging to Baibalan, have undergone extraordinary changes. The tales of the past epochs were confused in numerous layers of history. Meanwhile, Lord Babylon's estate to the room where Samuel Babylon was located. Loud screams. Samuel gently put a spoon on the table and sighed. Another morning spoiled shouts and crazy. He muttered, which no longer stands. He was clear. This land was poor, populated by criminals. Even it is impossible to harvest a normal crop here. All locals are either exile or mentally ill. There is no one in the normal state. Even Samuel admitted, and he is the same. Covering his face with his hand, he remembered. His parents suddenly died of poisoning after a stormy night. Earth needs change, and problems. A whole abyss. Suddenly, the wife of his wife sounded from the door. She came in and said that their baby whispered. They say she wanted a little alcohol. Samuel shouted that she was just inventing it because she wanted to drink herself. But the woman replied, yes, this is true. She would not give up now. And she also accused that he took her for her, without even realizing that she is now an important person in the family. Samuel was angry. The head was pounding. It is impossible because he is an adept. He knew that she was a Graf's daughter, but her baby pranks were annoyed. Apparently, because of this, her family did not want to contact her. Once she tried to drown anger in wine, and that was then met Samuel. He drank in the same bar, unable to fall asleep. Pressing his head into his hands, he genuinely regretted that they then found themselves near, because he drunk and did what he was sorry. But the girl suddenly laughed. He asked that she had laughed, but she answered with a smile, just crazy evil, that's all. She came and said, all her life was lonely, but now they are together. Well, or three, if you take into account the baby. Samuel looked away and replied quietly that he was pleased to hear it. However, she suddenly added, it would be better if their lives were a little better. Samuel exclaimed that because of this, it is not necessary to start such conversations. Suddenly a cry came behind the door. Someone threatened Lord. The wife was scared. Samuel grabbed her hands to calm her. Turned men fell into the room. One of them raised the sword and muttered an apology. They say that this land belongs to them. Samuel immediately closed his wife himself. He asked Fierce how he dared to send a sword to a pregnant woman. He raised his hand, and the magic of gravity wiped the attackers from the face of the earth. Samuel muttered, do not underestimate the worst of the earth. He was dealing with difficult cases and knew more than anyone else. Samuel only regret the floor. It would have to be cleaned and repaired again. Suddenly, Eliza hugged him. It was caught by surprise. She said with a smile that he was incredible, a real character who saved her. She was endlessly happy that she married Sam. But Samuel, without being subjected to emotions, stated with the cold in his voice that he was a cruel, bloody lord. He waited for she to be scared, but the girl only nodded. They say she knew it for a long time. It surprised him. Samuel mentally prayed that their child does not go to either or himself. In the end, the son was born, though unwanted. But the Lord heard prayers. The boy was surprisingly good. It was difficult to believe that the blood of the evil Lord flowed in his veins. Even more amazing was how bright and light it looked. However, he was not perfect. Once the boy caught the fish and decided to cure it with magic, and instantly killed all the fish in the pond. It combines the frenzy of the Elisa and the dark nature of Samuel. Meanwhile, the celebration continued in the kingdom of Baibal. Even the fake royal castle became the subject of national humiliation, but only a few knew the true truth. Everything was hidden deeply. Rice solemnly raised his hand and proclaimed, today we celebrate the opening of the castle loud. A party! All over the kingdom began a holiday. Food, drinks, fun. Everyone could drink and eat as much as you like. The holiday succeeded. Many people gathered. All were joyful and full. And Rice could not be pleased with it. In the midst of the event, he approached Irina and Alicia, saying that the workers should be thankful. In his soul, he decided they needed to look at them. Alicia, smiling, replied, "He is a real he, caring as always." Then Rice returned to Irina and asked if she wanted to walk and rest. She answered that she did not want to walk, because the slurry drips from the aroma of festival food. Alicia, noticing the Irina's reaction, gave her, they say. They produce the highest quality meat on a large scale. And after these words, Irina became even harder to hold back. Irina did not have time to click, as Alice ran rapidly to the tables with food to try the best meat. She only asked her friend not to run too far, not to get lost. Alicia waved her hand and exclaimed that Irina is her most expensive girlfriend, and at the festival everything can be lost, even a little lost. Rice stood silently. Suddenly the girl fell on his chest, and barely saying the words, confessed that a little drink. Rice laughed. She drank from the beginning and clearly did not spare the measures. The boy became embarrassed because the place was crowded. It turned out that she planned everything. She surrounded them in dark cloaks so that no one could see. This was embarrassed by Rice to hiccups. He felt stunned. Because the guy should flirt the first, and here, he was attacked by the girl. Alicia noticed his embarrassed expression and asked if he did not hate it at times. Rice worried, almost crazy. He swore he never succumbed to her charms. But thoughts were interrupted by a loud male replica. It was Klaus. He approached and reported that he should talk to Rice about a very urgent case. Going closer and seeing the tension, Klaus asked if he did not interfere. For Rice it was salvation, and he was genuinely happy. Klaus said that people drank much more than planned, and the supply of alcohol is exhausted. Rice nodded. Yes, full of alcohol, he also noticed. But it was not a surprise. He knew how to solve the problem. He put on black gloves and went to the fountain. He gathered a crowd around him and asked everyone to pay attention, poured a glass of wine into a fountain and activated his magic. Suddenly, the water in the fountain turned into real wine. People could not believe the eyes. For simple mortals, it was a miracle. Rice proudly exclaimed that he always fulfilled his people's request. In fact, he secretly honed this speech. Then Klaus said that if you arrange such a holiday, even the noble will not be a problem. He was shocked. He did not believe that the vengeful district would invite other nobles. Rice noticed a violent reaction, but remained silent. Alicia stated that once they united around Rice Sam, there will be no problems. Rice himself thought, what if you open the territory? Irene said that sometimes it is worth having fun. But Rice realized, if the land becomes open, it can cause war. At this point, men around shouted that it was time to show the world what their steel bodies were capable of. One of the older men turned to the dragon's rider. It is necessary to increase bombs production urgently. He supported. They will still create horse coordination and show everyone their power. Someone exclaimed that only bombs are already inspiring, and the other added, the dwarves are already working on new weapons. In the crowd, the girls nodded silently. It seems that all the men of their people were a little crazy. But after such conversations, people were really ready for major changes. And although everyone rejoiced, Rice began to worry. Did he just want to sway his lands? It seemed meaningless to him. Later on the same day, he took the lantern and went to a secret place. He wanted to run a little from the crowd that would be buzzing until the night. But this is exactly what he told him in inner voice. Rice came to the marble dragon farm and grabbed one of them. On the way, he remembered. Once there were thickets and drunks here, and now silence and peace. He was glad. His people are finally ready. He reached the right place, carefully put the dragon on the ground and whispered, it would be good if everything went smoothly. It was a bad idea to kill a pet, so the replacement will have to be secret. He put on magical gloves and began a sword call. Irene smiled, but the smile seemed to him anxious. Magic was directed into a small marble body, and in a moment that tiny dragon turned to huge. He looked somehow strange. Rice thought that he may have gone a little with magic. The dragon grunted. His skin throbbed with reddish light. The appearance was unusual, but Rice decided not to worry. The snail's suit was also red. Rice said goodbye to the dragon and ordered to treat Mr. Snail. Meanwhile, the monster was screaming frantically. The guy thought again about his people. Once everyone spoke here in different languages. Satisfied, he smiled. The case is done. Now you can go home safely and go to bed. Today's act deserves a good rest. But there was something wrong with the dragon. When Rice left, blood began to drip from his wings, and the body was covered with strange growths. The blood fell on gray grass and splashed on the ground. Suddenly, the dragon turned to something horrible. New forms began to sprout from it, the shoots grew, and blood was fountain. This is how the horror ghost opened. Rice, meanwhile, returned to the castle, lay down in bed with a pure conscience, not even knowing that he had created something really scary. Meanwhile, everyone else continued to celebrate the opening of the castle, not even knowing that something was really terrible. In the lands of Gango, meanwhile, they were actively preparing for war. The owner gave the order. All troops should immediately invade the territory of Babylon. In response, dead silence. Only one soldier's neglect exclaimed something hesitantly. The rest did not even try to pretend to be ready for battle. This apathy was angry with Lord. He shouted, "Why are the exclamations so pathetic? If someone does not like something, let him say." One of the subordinates tried to persuade to stop. There was no reason for this war. However, the Lord stuck his mouth. They will be discussed later. In the order, the soldiers whispered, "Rumors of a groundless attack seems true." Someone grunted, "Power spoils. Absolute power destroys." Lord continued to shout, "They would simply destroy a flock of exiles and criminals. It will be easy cleaning." But the soldiers mocked. "There is nothing to plunder in Babylon, even women there. They do not impress." Lord was indifferent. His only desire is to kill every inhabitant. Smiling, he thought, even if something went wrong, they would destroy each other because of internal conflicts. It will be said that it was the battle of dragons. But suddenly the sky broke a spooky sound. A roar of a creature that could not be alive. The huge shadow closed the sun. The earth darkened. The same giant dragon was hanged over the army. Everyone froze. He could be seen in detail, and this was even more horror. Panic began. The crowd merged into the revs. Some shouted about the end. Others were aware of horror. The dragon broke through the mountains. Someone noted that this creature is much larger than they told and has a strange color. The soldiers ran where? Lord, blinded by bloodthirsty, ordered to attack. But one of the servants, running away, shouted to him that he was now on his own. The dragon stopped suddenly. All over his body began to blow strange growths. He broke something indistinguishable, and the body began to grow even more. Suddenly, all these growths exploded, pouring the earth behind the troops with blood. It seemed that the dragon was torn, and the trouble had passed. Lord had already dreamed of recovering the mines, and even invented the name for a new hero, a killer of the dragon. But in a moment, everything changed. The soldiers who sprayed the blood were felt by an unbearable burning. It corrupted the body alive. The organs and scales of the dragon began to grow in the place of human flesh. One of them turned into a creature simply. He woke up. He is hungry and needs human meat. Everyone who touched the blood became a dragon. And they became more and more. Lord himself felt the skin becomes a rough and huge horns sprouted from his head. He realized that dragon did not appear just like that. Someone has sent it. For the last time, in a half-human voice, he croaked. Rice Babylon did everything right. Meanwhile, silence prevailed in Babylon. Rice woke up early, got a good sleep, and felt the morning was surprisingly fresh and pleasant. Klaus approached him and noted, "Despite the discipline of Reach Sama after the holiday in the city, bodies are still lying." Rice answered him with a smile. He added that some, such as Irene, still drinks will wake up with a hangover. And Klaus, apparently, would not hurt a little rest. Klaus came closer and seriously said that his duty was near Rice, because there are many enemies among the nobility. Rice was surprised. Do he have enemy aristocrats? And here Klaus moved the theme to girls who often surround Rice. He mentioned that those girls were models for the love story of Bella Sensi. They just eavesdropped the conversation around the corner, and they were terribly discouraged, hearing about their past. Klaus continued. Although the maid took the day off today, their presence was still felt. Perhaps because of respect for the aura of Rice himself. Rice thought everything was going fine, but something was disturbed. And while he walked the corridor, passed by the girls and said that today they had an official weekend. They thanked for the care and joked that if they had not rested, the main maid would not forgive them. Rice nodded. They say he understands everything, and thought that girls really look tired lately. He gave them enough weekends, but the idea of the novel Bella Sensia did not go out of her head. The girls apologized and said they were time to clean after the festival. As soon as they went, Rice addressed Klaus. What was it? He just asked, "Can the artist not be a favorite of citizens and girls?" Rice smiled, touched his chin, and said, Barren blossomed so much that he could even afford art. But their conversation suddenly interrupted the cry of the girl. It was Alicia. She ran to them in all pairs, and Rice immediately asked what had happened. In her eyes, horror was read. Refugees from the territories of Zhang came to their lands. Their villages were destroyed by some unknown magical power. Both guys were shocked by this news. Rice immediately ran to the main square and declared the arrivals. He was the lord of this kingdom and heard about the destruction of their homes. He wants to know what happened. The refugees immediately began to magnify Lord. He turned out to be so merciful. But in their eyes, one request was burning: to take revenge for the dead. But Rice first wanted to know what happened. He noticed how depressed they were, so he put on gloves and used the magic of recovery. Their thoughts were cleansed, fears retreated. At the same moment, the dirt and traces of fatigue disappeared from the faces. The girl thanked the salvation. Alicia hugged Rice, passionately praising his skills. He nodded and said, once everyone calmed down, it was time to tell what really happened. One of the men began the story. Everything happened literally before dawn. One farmer in the rural area went to check the cowshed. He was awakened by a creepy roar. He thought that a kind of animal may have climbed there. At the same time, all the soldiers were already mobilized by the order of Lord, but the cry of the cow was cut off sharply. It scared him, and he decided to check what had happened. Going to the barn, he grabbed a stick, just in case. He looked inside, and from what he saw was shock and horror. There was one of the soldiers who turned into a dragon. He tore the cow in half and eagerly the meat. The dragon man turned. The farmer shouted and rushed. The creature chased after him. The farmer ran, as ever in his life, shouted that a monster appeared in the village, hoping that at least someone would run away. But suddenly he flew to another man who also shouted, "Run!" The farmer saw that he was wounded and tried, "Help!" But the wounded shouted that one of the dragons bit him. His body swept the flames from the inside, and in a few seconds it began to be covered with scales. He also turned into a dragon. The farmer, apologizing that he could not save him, escaped. A huge, terrible dragon was already circling over the village. Listening to everything, Rice exclaimed, "Obviously Window Snail turned into a demonic creature." One of the refugees confirmed that it was. And Rice, meanwhile, considered all these stunning details. Rice noted that he seemed suspicious. Just during the attack of warriors suddenly mobilized, and probably did the window himself. The ability to infect others with a bite is terrible. Klaus asked if he understood everything. Rice rose to the ground and addressed all the refugees from the lands of Gango, ordering to listen carefully. He said that a creature that infects others did not appear naturally. It was created artificially. If it was a natural phenomenon, the world would have died for a long time. People were approvingly killed. He continued, "It would be impossible for an ordinary person, but someone with magic could create it. And this someone is a magician. The refugees immediately remembered how he gathered all his troops, apparently to turn them into a monster. Rice confirmed that everything was too suspicious. The snail plan was to create an army of demons from their own people. And in reality, this dragon was created by Rice. Rice remembered how Snail constantly boasted his dragons. But the truth is that they were only subjects for its virus dragonization. And he wanted to capture the world. At this point, the maid came and reported that the flow of refugees from Gango did not stop. Everyone claimed that they were attacked by unknown demonic creatures. Rice immediately raised the alarm. It was impossible to lose a single second. He turned to his people and refugees again. Evil has already turned the snail's windows into a demonic dragon, and he plans to conquer the whole world, infecting everyone. Rice ordered Klaus and Irene to gather all who can keep their weapons. They have the duty to save people from this scourge. And Alicia he entrusted the help of refugees. If they are wounded, let them lead to him. The guy shouted. He would not allow the hacking of the snail's magician to do what he pleased. It will protect the peace of this world. The map appeared on the capital of Django. Once she flourished thanks to a strong ruling dynasty. It was not believed that it was now the real hell. Lord himself began to turn into a monster, and headed an army of monsters. Yes, with the help of evil magic, a demonic dragon was created. That dragon lost his mind, shouted about the destruction of Babylon and preserved memories. He returned to his inheritance. People shouted in panic that everything was over. Even if the monster does not eat them, it will turn them on. One of the peasants pleaded with the great goddess Sophia for salvation. But the protagonists snatched their pleas, shouting, "Rice by Barren is already on the way, a hero who will destroy the army of evil. He promised to end the tyranny once and for all." But in his thoughts, Rice did not hide fear. There are many, but he knew. It was a snail who is a true culprit. And though the thoughts were repeated, he remembered again and again, this time he must win. For a moment, all the dragons froze, and then they went on the offensive at the same time. Rice remained calm. His people stood behind his back, and he believed that everything would be fine. He reached forward and exclaimed, the dragon had already done enough. Evil! And at the same moment trees grew out of the ground, the trunks of which pierced dragons through. As soon as the trees disappeared, the wounded creatures fell to the ground, and the giant dragon, falling, crushed the neighboring buildings with his carcass. The locals were stunned. Lord Barren was here. He was recognized as the supreme magician. That he had just created seemed incredible. The man who prayed to the goddess whispered, which perhaps Rice is the heavenly god himself. The protagonist appealed to the enemies. They were the victims of the atrocities of the snail. And now he asked for permission. Save them. Rice crossed his hands in front of him, and at the same moment a bright light exploded from his palms. The blinding sparks illuminated the dragons. One of the guys shouted local, "Look at them, something happens to them." Dragons did not understand what was happening. They looked at their hands. Their bodies were healed. Dirt and distortions were washed away. Residents were shocked. The monster returned to a normal look, but that's not all. Everyone who burned in the flames were also healed. One of the men frozen in surprise, looking at those who just lay half dead. He exclaimed, "It is impossible." No one knew who this mysterious young man was. He returned to the consciousness of the monsters and saved people at the edge of death. People begged Rika by Barren, help those who were injured by the monks. He asked not to worry, and not at all as a typical aristocrat. He said they should see how he would put an end to the chaos, which was arranged by an evil magician snail. His goal is to bring peace and happiness to people. After these words, his allies began to prepare for attacks. Irene aimed at the bow and released several arrows into the creatures that were still in battle. A few monsters fell, others were injured, but it did not stop them, and they rushed. Klaus decided to help and swung his sword. His blows were accurate, several lightning movements, and the monsters flew into pieces. Rice asked to cover him while he would treat others. Marina and Klaus smiled and replied, clearly. The wounded dragons lying on the ground after healing one by one became people again. One of the allies took two on his shoulders and exclaimed, "Everything is perfect. Recovery is happening." He told others, these creatures cannot bite their steel armor, so it is worth focusing on their salvation. People understood and supported this idea. Alicia, watching from afar, smiled and exclaimed, "Rice, as always, is incredible. Everything goes for plan." She clicked her fingers. The subordinate appeared behind her. The mysterious man bowed low. "Girl," Alicia ordered. The grabs of several of them before Rice completed the reincarnation process. The subordinate clarified whether she was confident. Alicia replied, "The power of the evil dragon may well become a force." Raichi-sama. She believed that Rice is a good man, and so I was convinced. He wanted to save everyone. In the meantime, the hero glowed with joy. Everything really went great. People from Gango were saved, almost everyone, and all this is without loss. All you have to do is complete the case. That is, to kill the disgusting creature, which lying on the back was still rushing to the babbling Rice. It was one of those who did not even have the thought of bringing the snail to normal. But thanks to the magic of Rice, the former demon's dragons regained their human appearance. The angry dragon stood and howled, "He will destroy the babbling Rice." But the hero knew, it remains only to destroy the source of evil, namely, the snail's window, who himself became a dragon. Rice looked closely at this monster, reflecting on how to kill him. The idea of saving Snail did not even sleep on. He thought it would be much easier if the dragon rider simply knocked out a fool before he turned into stuffing. But the real task is to express all the anger and pain of the victims. To keep it all in yourself, it would be scary. Rice considered everything and finally came to the conclusion. He addressed all the inhabitants and urged to listen. Snail Django is the source of all evil. For his sake, he abandoned humanity, turned into a dragon, and tried to turn the whole world into monsters. People supported Rice. They lifted their fists up and shouted together, "There is no forgiveness. Rice ordered to wipe tears and prepare. It's not too late. They have a chance to take revenge. These words were lit in all the morale. With the raised mood, Rice applied restorative magic to everyone around. Their wounds. They healed. Rice urged everyone. It's time to burn a dragon. That is, to save the world. In other words, to become heroes. People have felt their strength. Now nothing would stop them. One of the men grabbed a huge fragment of the earth and threw it directly into the dragon. He did not expect that an ordinary man was dared to attack. The stone hit him just in the muzzle. The dragon exploded in a rage, opened his mouth, and shouted that they were real freaks. People answered, "Turn and die. We are the guards of this world." These words have been angry with the dragon even more. He did not understand what this pathetic race was about. And it was at this point that another piece of land flew into his forehead. Blood from the nose, and he quoted, "I will destroy you." The dragon lifted his head up, going to attack. Irene spanned and screamed Rice, but he answered calmly, "I will cope." The hero shouted to the riders of the dragons, "We begin!" And here from the sky began to fall Kubo-like guns like lightning of war. The real rain from the shells struck the monster. The dragon's explosions opened the ground. The locals stood frozen, not realizing what was happening. Some thought it was magic. One guy noticed something in the sky and called everyone to look. Above, dozens of black silhouettes with wings similar to dragons appeared behind the horizon. People could not understand what it was. But looking at, they saw, these are people riding on dragons. Irene and Klaus also prepared for battle, and Alicia watched everyone. Afrohai smiled. A new legend seems to be born. The hero hoped that Snail saw it all. This is what the real power of friendship looks like. All that is happening now is the fruit of Rice's efforts and his trust in people. And he knew exactly. There is only one source of chaos. The giant dragon looked at the hero with surprise, not understanding what he saw. The memories flashed before the snail's eyes as his body began to turn into a dragon. Rice rolled up, remembering all the moments between them. The snail exploded and rushed into the attack. The dragon was going to crush Rice, but he clenched his fist. "I will not let you kill me!" The whole world wanted Rice to restore order. But Snail believed no one ever wished it. He threatened death. Suddenly he felt something covering his body. Prickly creepers appeared around. The dragon did not understand what was happening. The forces left him. Rice looked at the snail. "This is your punishment for trying to capture the world." The dragon whispered that he didn't even think about it. But the hero replied, "You will become a statue, and you will be watching the world forever." And at the same moment, the body of the dragon squeezed. The frightened snail grabbed his head, desperately denying everything that happened to him. His body was completely shrouded in prickly vines. Rice, Irene, Klaus, and all residents of the city were surprised to raise their eyes to the sky. It was hard to believe that the giant dragon had just turned into a tall tree with a thick, spreading branch. One of the men exclaimed that it was just incredible. Before their eyes, Viscount Snail became a tree. Everyone decided, this guy is a real fool, and no doubt that such fate is waiting for anyone who wants to capture the world. One of the inhabitants wasted and threw the tree. "You will rot here forever looking at how we protect Gango. It all over." But there was a scar on the ground. The city was almost completely lying in ruins. The trees created by magic later caused these destruction, but most importantly, everyone remained alive. Rice believed that they should not be in spirit. He offered to rebuild the city from scratch. People supported. He was right. Fortunately, they have a huge tree. It could be cleaned and lived in it. The hero thought that it will be the largest wooden house in the world. The idea was very much liked, so the boys were immediately offered to work. Meanwhile, Snail himself, looking from top with horror, begged to stop. But his suffering just began. So Viscount Snail, who because of unclean magic became evil dragon, was defeated by the savior. Meanwhile, in the middle of the desert, the girl went, thinking about the meaning of life. All she wanted was water. With these thoughts, she removed her son's cloak, and she laughed. "I am the magician of water. What is the difference?" she said to herself. She was constantly asked to wear the cloak, traveling the desert, but it could create a water barrier that reflected light and maintained temperature. In fact, this traveler, who recently asked for water in the village, was the goddess of water, the Sakesia Oliveira, but she just wanted to be a regular traveler. But everything is enough. A person who goes through the desert is almost naked is not exactly ordinary. Sisya raised her hand. It is time to show everyone what she is capable of. It will resolve the problem with water in the village. She will be honored in the same way as rice. But first, you need to refresh. She undressed and used the magic of water to wash her hair. The magical water ball also covered her clothes, washing away from it all the dirt. All you have to do is complete the cooking. Sisya clenched his fist and dried her clothes. When things were clean and dry, she was dressed again, and now the last is to spend all that water to the big city. Sisya decided to have time before hungry. On the border of the kingdom of Noga is the hot land, called Slame, the country of the sun and the desert. One of the locals called to the man in the cloak to look around. He, dark-haired, did not understand anything and returned to the old man. And here they saw a woman who was heading from the desert. No one could believe that she had overcome this heat, even in such an outfit. People were alert. Maybe it's a monster in the human likeness? But Silesia approached and just smiled. She was entertained by these peasants who lifted such a violence. Probably they accepted her for the goddess, Sophia. One of the peasants saw her smile and twisted, disgusting. The woman nearby suggested that Lord Draman immediately inform. But the other objected. They say, Lord has more important things. Moreover, now everyone suffers from a lack of water. A dark-haired man suggested simply watching. They may though find out how their guards work. The rest agreed. Cilicia was surprised that the men suddenly disappeared. I decided that, apparently, her beauty was too much for them. Impressive, but she was indifferent. We should act and show what she was capable of. She turned to the inhabitants of the desert. She knew how difficult it was without water, so she decided to give them a heavenly blessing. And as soon as she said, the sky was covered with clouds. A deaf roar was heard from the valley, and suddenly water began to fall from heaven. The surprised men looked up without believing their eyes. One of them, bearded, said that he prayed to the gods. Someone suggested magic. The girl caused the rain and asked nothing in return. It seemed even more incredible. Cilicia herself has not seen them yet, but she was sure, now they are hysterical. A little more, she will see them. When the clouds were scattered, the sky reaped the sun again. The girl called her name and promised, while she is here, they will never know thirst again. People decided that she was a noble lady, but did not understand why she was helping simple. Cilicia smiled kindly and said, if people are happy, then she too. And in general, it is a little thing for her. She had already imagined her honoring, as rice once. One of the peasants thought that she was breaking the teachings of Sophia Church, using magic for commoners. Yes, perhaps she was a real savior. Cilicia decided, this man is a real fool. And yet people were kneeling and bowed together, rescuers. Cilicia was already happiness. She so wanted to become like rice. She fought for it, even when she was behind bars. And now, with tears, she exclaimed, I caused rain because you lacked water. At this point, Cilicia was approached by a man named Draymond Sangredel, a 42-year-old guard. He explained sternly, it was because of this that she was closed. Water is an extremely valuable resource in this country, and they cannot allow it to depreciate it as they wanted. Cilicia looked at him stunningly without realizing that he was carrying. Moreover, there was a strict rule here. No one but Lord has the right to use magic. She is a violation of the law. The girl cried out. They did not know about such a ban, but the drama stressed, before traveling, study the laws of the country. Magic is a great power, and therefore many lords pass similar laws. And she is also wanted, for the destruction of one of the settlements. Cilicia smiled guilty. You don't do anything. But her fate has a court. He is not a judge. However, even without a sentence, the man was forced to punish her for violation. Seeing the executioner with a black bag on her head, the girl put and begged not to punish her. But it was not personal. Anyone who violates the law is punished. As a noble woman, she had to understand it. She did not hear him. She fell to the floor and began to shout, rolling in tears. And suddenly the hallmarks of the dungeon had a giant wave. The drama did not understand what was happening and swore. He shouted, accusing Cilician, and was not mistaken. She shouted that her water was, because people were betraying her all the time. Draymond tried to direct the magical flow in response, but there was nothing in her eyes. She looked through them like a void. She was indifferent. He understood that his forces were far from the power of the snail, but he did not even imagine that Cilicia would be able to block him easily. The assistant and the cat were offended to escape. The drama screamed, ordering her to stop. She would drown herself. But Silesia did not stop. She reminded with a smile, she is a magician. It can dissolve in it when it wants. The drama did not understand what the point is. So why did she come here at all? She answered, to help. But instead of gratitude, she was killed. The water covered it with her head. Her clothes dissolved in her. Silesia, naked and filled with tears, shouted, I came to help, and you betrayed me. However, after a few minutes, she raised her head proudly. Tears will no longer help. She decided to go to another country. After escaping from the dungeon, she raised her hand to heaven and announced she would become a heroine like Rice. The story of a great criminal in his time, Silesia Placide, was just beginning, 2 weeks after the battle with the dragon Mulch. At this time, the main character was in his fortress in the grandmother, Barren. The Duke of Cohenheim exclaimed, It's great, and called Rice his dear friend. He believed, before him, the true hero of their country. Rice bowed and thanked for such an honor. But he added that it was not necessary to come in person. The Duke gladly hugged Rice and said that they were already as a family, so the guy should not be behaved too officially. In addition, he did not suffer to see the castle of Rice. The hero thought that this fortress was almost inferior to the royal palaces. But it looks like the Uncle Hongheima was really amazed. Although the Duke himself saw real royal castles, Rice wanted to find out what happened to Django. The Duke smiled at this and said that he intended to hand them over to him. Inside, the hero exploded with joy, but from the outside only he had thanked for the decision. The Duke warned Rice that the guy should now be careful. Even the king learned about everything that happened. And the Duke, as it turned out, hid a lot. Rice stared at him in surprise, not understanding what it was. Then the Duke stunned him with news. A month later, he should meet the king in person. In his thoughts, Rice has already jumped from happiness. Now even the king knows what he is cool. The hero dreamed that his ancestors see this moment. The Duke, seeing that the guy is a little nervous, he assured, everything will be fine. He has already informed the king that Rice was a respectful and obedient new moon. Rice clenched his fist and, sitting opposite, said that he had 2 ideas. The Duke smiled with interest, ready to listen to any of his proposal. The first idea of Rice voiced immediately, to arrange a great holiday in honor of victory and invite all the nomads. The Duke jumped out of the chair, hearing the sequel. Rice suggested that even the king himself invite. Hohenheim asked in surprise, the hero wants to gather all the nobles in this castle? His eyebrows climbed to heaven. In fact, Rice built the castle for this purpose, to see how much Babylon thrives. And by inviting the king, he hoped to erase the bad reputation of this region. He even mentally imagined how he made a letter where he asks the king to visit a new city with his own eyes. The Duke thought for a moment, and finally he agreed with a smile, yes, we must act. He trusted the sharp mind of Rice. Although the boy's father thought he was lacking in luck, Hohenheim was delighted. The Duke stood sharply and said that he should immediately go to cook everything. Sadly asked for permission to go. Rice was surprised. He did not notice how time he flew. But why did the Duke come at all? Soon, the carriage with the Duke went past the wheat fields. He clapped his palms several times, and in a second from the roof, a female voice came from the moon over the field. The Duke suggested that they would not last long. The girl sighed. Unfortunately, it was true. They cooperated with a semi-spawning church to keep the situation under control. But this time, everything came out of control. A team of investigators will leave the capital. The Duke thought that they could even send murderers behind the district. But the girl assured, the strongest of the church was following him all the time, so everything will be fine. The man smiled. His friend Rice was really amazing. Everything went according to the plan. He did not think that he would dare to invite the king himself, being a lord from the most indispensable territory. For the Duke, it was a masterful provocation. Rice finally decided, the time of the greatest war that this world saw. The girl added that the secret moves had already broken up in the palace, and then tried to kill him so that he was silent. After that, he lost confidence. The Duke supported the hero's decision, clenched his fist, and promised to convey his words to the king. He was looking forward to the skewed face of that self-confident old. When the Arena and Alicia learned that the hero had invited the king, and knowing the celebration, they were stunned. The servant confirmed that she heard it on her own ears. Then the Arena realized why the Duke was so hurried. Alicia was interested in telling more. Alicia's eyes flashed. She decided not to waste time and contact her agent immediately. The arena looked at her seriously and said they had to talk. Alicia thought that it was a prisoner of dragons, but the arena shook her head. She understood the reasons for the act of Alicia, but the conversation should have been about another. She wanted to talk about the main obstacle to Rice, the king himself. Alicia was surprised. The arena saw the power of the monarch with her own eyes when the nation was destroyed. In his thoughts, the girl returned 10 years ago. She then told her grandfather that she wanted to fight, but he forbade. The alliance of magics and the beginning opposed them. She could not stand, fled to the forest, insulting her grandfather. He just reached out, asking him to stop because she was Princess Arena. The arena fled with the thoughts of the dead. She lost her brother, sister, mother. Holding the tears, the girl stopped. She should beat to protect her. And suddenly, the noise is quite close. She turned with horror. Did the enemy come here? The sound was heard from a huge tree with a thick crown. The arena quickly pulled up to look better than looking at. The girl saw. Her father clamped thin magical threads. These were the noble magicians who had long been hunting for him. They disregardedly noticed that even in the deepest forest, no one to hide. Moreover, such animals as he. One of them put the head of the prisoner with a mockery. He believed that the prenals were in vain to such a talentless king, but Arena's father just clenched his teeth. He may not have been a good ruler, but as a warrior had no equal. A moment, and the body of the attacker fell without a head. Shocked aristocrats rushed to protection. The barriers were to stop the attacks, but he moved too quickly. Arena's father roared into a new attack. Just before the eyes of the arena, he destroyed all the enemies in seconds. His heads flew in different directions. The arena kept breathing. She was fond of her father than ever before. One of the enemies remained alive. He was ordered to convey to his king that the animals would come to him themselves, but as soon as he tried to answer, his head flew into pieces. A stranger appeared, who said coldly, "No messengers needed." Irina froze. Something in this stranger has caused horror. Her father looked up. An old man hanged in the air in front of him. He came to the king of beasts in person. Irina's father did not believe his eyes. King Noza himself stood in front of him. He said he came to thank for murder of garbage without even having magic. The old man with a long beard said he had little time and ordered him to come to him. But Irina's father did not tolerate neglect and rushed. The arena was barely breathing, watching her father with all fury flies forward. His hand pierced the body of King Nose, seemed to be killed. But when Irina looked better, her face was distorted by fear. The old man turned out to be unharmed. His hand pierced the body of the girl's father through. He smiled, they say, there is no strength in it. The body collapsed to the ground. The king dresses disdainfully called him a failure, that he was not even worth the destruction of the region. But he was interrupted by the sound behind. He turned. He looked at him with a small arena, holding his breath. The old man just smiled. He became interesting, and disappeared, leaving the animal to suffer. Irina explained Alicia bitterly. He left them alive because he did not believe that they would be able to change something, even if they did not die. But Irina just smiled joyfully and said not to worry. Now she grew up with her dono and everyone else. She was sure that they would be able to overcome the king together. Meanwhile, in the capital of Kingdom Nosi, the king and killer of his father Irina sat in his palace. The old man thought about Baibayon and smiled eagerly. Everything that happened seemed to him quite fun. But the border between the nausea and the Barrenism Babylon was still poisoned by evil. Although these lands now had to become a new safe shelter. And all this, thanks to a person who seemed to not even realize the scale of what was happening. Although the maids believed that all merit in the power of Lord himself. However, Gru modestly replied that it should not be predicted. Success is the merit of all who believed in him. But at heart, he agreed, the leader is good. The hero was in a great mood and prepared for a grand feast, with the presence of not only the nobility, but also the king himself. But he was advised, you should not serve dragon dishes. It can offend members of the royal family. In any case, it was nice to see people united to help, even those who could not tolerate aristocrats, except for Rice himself. It came to the fact that people worked overtime to keep up on the holiday, and it was a good chance to unite everyone around a common goal. Meanwhile, a meeting took place at the King Knowledge Palace. He was outraged by the fact that he grew up the invitation to the king. In their opinion, for such arrogance it was worth executing. But the king raised his hand and ordered everyone to calm down. Yes, Rice lacks tact, but he is a hero who won the dragon. And the name of the ruler of the knife, Yardabert. He for more than 130 years. In the letter, He mentioned him personally, and asked to visit the territory to see everything with his own eyes. Babylon was still considered a barren land, and it was a subtle hint of the need for help. But some nobles did not like this initiative of the hero. The king calmly replied that to interrupt him during the speech is a real incident. One of the noblemen shuddered, not knowing what to say in response to reproach. The soldiers of the king silently approached him, grabbed his hands and stretched away until he was pleased with the mercy. The screen broke off when one of the knights in the eyes of everyone struck the head of the arrogant nobleman. The rest of the audience pretended that nothing had happened, and the king only invited to continue the audience. After all, those who did good had to be awarded. But since the king himself was busy, he was not going to go personally. He called the 48th prince. Johann Knowledge, a 13-year-old guy, froze, hearing that he should go to Babylon instead of his father. The prince was not delighted. Babylon was considered a death where the most weird people gathered. The guy, born and brought up in the capital, would prefer to stay there. But the king widow, who did not hear the complaints, put his palm on his ear and said with a smile that he was already old, hearing badly. But it seems that the prince has just refused to execute the order. The guy flee the frost on his back, the first rule of the knife. Who is angry with the king, he will die. The prince immediately changed his mind and raised his hand, begging for permission to go. The king smiled and agreed, adding that the guy is still too young, so if he died, he did not trouble. Johann only whispered that it is cruel. The audience ended, and a confused prince, accompanied by the nobility, moved to the exit. The massive door of the hall closed loudly, and the king remained alone. His face twisted a crazy smile. He did not restrain himself and laughed aloud. The old king enjoyed the moment. Who would have thought that some Gru dared to call the king himself? He slammed several times on the throne, having fun with the thought that the guy was asking for help. If he behaves so roughly, then a traitor is ready to oppose the whole country. Everything that grew was thoughtless, children's. And in this, the king was not mistaken. However, it was such a rebel that has been waiting for a long time. Using the doctrine of the Church of Sophia, he forbade the common people of magic, sowed hatred and discrimination. He won the lands of animals and dwarves, made them slaves to nourish the fire of a rebellion. But he did not touch Babylon. He was full of suspicious fraud. And so, with a passion in his voice, the king exclaimed that he wanted to have such an enemy as grew up for a long time. He hoped that he would satisfy his thirst for conflict. Instead, Johann had to be a victim. He wanted to grow a prince as painful as possible, as an act of revenge that would melt. War. In the meantime, he grew up with happiness. Babylon became a real home for him, and he waited for him when the king would finally praise him. The moon passed, and the hero was preparing to arrange a grand holiday in his wonderful castle. Everyone who sought peace for the nation was invited to commemorate the great hero of Babylon. One of the dukes, having learned about it, became angry and tore the invitation, indignant that this worthwhile baron dared to intervene in the case of the nobility. He was not impressed with the rumors of the victory over the dragon. In his eyes, he grew up a liar. But the assistant reminded him that even the Duke of Guggenheim signed this invitation, so to ignore him would be stupid. The Duke only burned that he was aware of it. However, he suspected it was only a tricky provocation plan. Babylon may be prepared in Babylon. Subsequently, the Duke glowed the idea. How to get rid of problems, and at the same time not to risk his own head. He ordered the response to RIS. A month later, a letter was received, which said that the Duke and his eldest son would not be able to come due to illness. Instead, they will come a younger son. And yet, Rice was asked to train a little, because the status of the Duke is much higher than that of a baron. Gro just smiled. He seems to be afraid. Although, as a fool, he did not quite understand the entire depth of the approach. Alicia came up and wondered if he checked the list of guests. The hero replied that everything was ready, and the guests were about to arrive. While Alicia worshipped, he looked at her lush forms, which he was constantly surprised. Rice thought strange that all the eldest sons of the lords became ill at the same time. Maybe it's a new disease? Maybe healing can be used to look even better. Alicia agreed. It will be perfect. The moment of truth was approaching, and it is necessary to show the world's greatness of Babylon. At that moment, the maid entered the room and asked for care. The dragon's riders reported that some guests had already arrived. Grow up. Time to greet the arrivals. Going into the corridor, he moved forward, having a maid. Lords sent not heirs, but minor, sometimes even extramarital children. Some of them could not even read. The arena smiled bitterly. Nothing surprise. The garbage of the country wants to get rid of its garbage. Alicia also smiled, confessing that he grew up, apparently, all of it provided. They were neglected, discarded, perhaps even abandoned. Indeed, these children were the same as they were. Alicia believed, Gru sought to heal their souls. And although he exaggerated, he really wanted to help. She reached out to the arena and offered to leave. The holiday was about to start. Meanwhile, in the corridor, Gru apologized to Klaus for distracting him from strengthening the security. Klaus smiled and said that the hero did not thank him. Bell and so ordered to stay next to Rice throughout the celebration. Lord's security is above all. But they dealt with the children of the nobility, so they will not do without a couple of weirdos. Klaus clapped on his back and assured that he was completely resting on him. He mentally wicked. The material is truly wonderful. But their conversation was interrupted by a cry. Someone loudly demanded a meeting with the owner of this territory. It seems that the problems have already begun. The hero approached the maid who was silent, not knowing what to say. Mr. Rice, the one who arrived from the kingdom of Nosy, recognized Risa and immediately began to scandal, pointing to the castle and asking what was happening here. The hero asked if he did not like this beauty that all the inhabitants were built together. Klaus slowly reached the sword, but the maid stopped his gaze. Rice explained that they simply used the architecture of the royal palaces. But he asked to be careful. Someone from the royal family will hear, and Johann exploded. He is a member of the royal family. Didn't she grow up? The hero grabbed his head. For the first time he hears about it. And honestly, this type looked complete. But in order not to ignite the conflict, he decided to invent something. He smiled and said that it was only a joke. And he himself believed that the upbringing of the royal descendant was visible at first sight. But the prince became angry even more. They say, the hero hints that he is not like the aristocrat? Rose did not understand why this guy got so. He did not even want to offend him, though he thought of calling an idiot. But he restrained. He thought that the prince was probably just tired and suggested to heal his head. Yes, Johann was on the verge and was already okay to nail the hero just in place. The prince was indignant that he grew not only copied the palace, but also painted it in black. It's horror. And in general, the castle is also with a stupid cat. The hero suggested that the castle could remind Johann's house, but he ordered him to be silent. It seemed to him that a plot against the crown was being prepared here. Ride was amazed. How can such conclusions be drawn through the castle? Johann turned to other children, hoping for support, but everyone was silent. They were confused and did not know what to say. One of them indifferently stated that he didn't care that it was in the country. Another thought they would just be destroyed. And the third generally lost the meaning of life. And he finally realized that their parents intentionally sent these children here to take their re-education. He has already begun to form a plan. But suddenly Alice ran up, clicked her fingers and ordered to detain everyone. The hero did not have time to understand. Klaus at the same moment was behind one of the young men and dug him in. Other servants in black helped Klaus to curb children. The hero stood, shocked by what was happening, and did not understand anything. Alicia smiled widely and assured Mr. Riss that she would take on. He would train them properly. The hero thanked uncertainly, without knowing whether to enjoy it or to be scared. He wanted to warn her so that I did not overdo it. But I came up with Irina and assured that he would also help. Everything would be fine. It only worried him more. With such a team of intelligence of children, will definitely fall. Alicia supported Irina and offered to send guests to the underground temple. The hero thought that the main thing is not to die, and the rest he treats. It's time to think about a party. Meanwhile, Johann slowly opened his eyes. He did not understand where he found himself. Other children of nobles tied to chairs sat in front of him. None of them knew what was waiting for them, but everyone looked frightened, especially after they saw two crazy women who were too happy that the children had already woke up. Johann tried to use magic to be free but was defeated. Alicia pressed the knife to his throat and advised not to move. If they were obedient, no one will suffer. The prince did not understand what she achieved. He threatened that if something happened to him, his father would not forgive it. But Irina got up in front of him and said that not everything was solving. If he wants to become a decent person, he must stop hiding behind his father. The prince was surprised to see the animal and asked what they were seeking. Irina smiled. The answer is obvious. Re-education. She did not know if the children were satisfied with their lives, so she asked directly, "Do they really want to live as they do now?" Johann was confused, but suddenly he confessed. He hates his father who treated him as a toy and despises the brothers who were bullied. After the words, he suddenly realized. His mouth speaks. What did they do with him? Alicia only smiled cunningly. They gave him a truthful serum. Johann was shocked. These people gave him a drug without doubt. In his eyes, they became true terrorists. But Irina raised her hand and suggested that others speak. One shouted that he hated his family and nobility. Another stated that he did not need a magical talent at all. The third just wanted to be beaten anymore, and the fourth wanted death to all who offended him. Alicia laughed enthusiastically. True desires came out. She urged not to restrain himself, to splash rage, and to allow her hatred to blossom. Johann tried to convince himself that his father was not so bad. But suddenly he changed his mind and exploded. He wants to kill the old and all his brothers. Alicia supported, they say. Let their thirst for the authorities will absorb them themselves, and the children will take their fate into their own hands. And along with the force that was gifted by Rice. With these words, Alish stabbed the syringe into the neck of Johann, inserting the drug. The boy's body shuddered. They lived on his face. The explosion of force freed him from the shackles. He did not understand what was going on with him, but felt an incredible power, as if he had reborn. Irina's eyes lit up. She recognized that Alicia introduced the drug based on a dragon virus. The danger has disappeared, but strength has increased many times over. Alicia suggested that the children show a new strength to parents, brothers, and all who despise them. The morale broke out. The children unanimously agreed. At this point, the hero was already approaching the door and heard joyful exclamations inside. He became anxious, so he looked. But everything looked peaceful. The children were active and happy. The hero decided that their parents would be happy. But despite all, his mind returned to the main, a party. Only he seems to have not noticed how bad everything is going. The events continued the next day after the celebration at Babylon Castle. The hero looked out the window, thinking that the guests had already returned home. But suddenly Irina appeared in front of the window, agreed that everyone had left. She added that the security accompanied them, so everything had to pass smoothly. However, her sudden appearance scared Rice. He did not understand why she always came out of the window, even in such a suit. The hero was screaming and barely restraining himself. But nevertheless, the workouts made an impression on him. Irina replied modestly, "Their brainwashing program is nothing special." Gross smiled. "It is not necessary to diminish. After all, with children, Naporis is a miracle that they now say that." Gardley's brother should also thank for an invitation to a party. The hero was convinced that his parents would change his mind, and his king would be in his pocket, because even Prince Johann was among the guests. He was looking forward to the reaction of the aristocrats, and Irina supported him. But in fact, everything turned out at all. One of the sons was so frightened by his father that he fell on the floor, begging not to touch. "We are a family." The guy was cold to silence. They have never been a family. He also learned that his father planned to kill him if he survived in Babylon. The guy grabbed his father for his hair and said that he was told by his own soldiers. He did not know how much he hates him. He lifted the old man with one hand and said that he now had only one family, the Demiurgus Church, and without any emotion killed him in place. On that day, the children who were tortured in their own homes became the heads of families, the most violent ways. Shortly afterwards, the servants in black turned to people, calling to listen carefully because their duty now is to honor the god Demiurgus, the creator of all things. According to followers, the goddess Sophia is only a fiction of the royal family. The real god will not despise his people. Magic is not a prohibited taboo, but a gift to lead people with love and understanding. One of the preachers removed the hood and, smiling, urged everyone to turn to the true god, Demiurga. People seemed to agree, but they were afraid, because it was contrary to the laws of the kingdom. However, the guy who killed his father spoke forward and asked to listen. He stated that he became a new head of the genus, because his father and brother died the same night. And although the details will tell later, one message had to be announced immediately. He decided to fully support the Demiurga Church. Unlike the Church of Sophia, their teachings said, "A real nobleman uses magic to protect his people." These words changed the guy, or it acted poison in his blood. Now he promised to use the force for good. He raised his hand, showing new magic. One of the people urged everyone to greet the new Lord. There was nothing left for people except to accept new power and faith. At this point, an elderly man appeared behind. He wanted to find out what was happening here. It was the supreme priest of the Church of Sophia. He looked at the guy, the youngest and invisible among the sons of Lord, and wondered how he dared to slaughter the people. The priest accused people. How did they dare to betray the state faith? And he ordered his soldiers to kill several as an example for others. But the soldiers did not have time. They were put into the ground instantly. The priest shouted with fury that the guy had raised a rebellion against the nation, and the royal army had already gone here. But the guy just smiled, because he was not alone. The brothers already acted too. He ordered the priest. The servants pulled the old man, and he shouted to the hoods, "Do not let the heretics win." But the guy firmly stated, "All this for the sake of the demiurge church." A few days later, the hero looked at the letters from the guests. One wrote that he gained power through their forces. Another thanked Rice and the church for transforming the territory into a real paradise. The third called the hero the Apostle of God, thanked for the sermon on the destruction of the aristocracy. It was a pleasure to read thanks. He was convinced once again that he was not mistaken, entrusting Alicia and Irina's upbringing. Reports on stability in the regions were added to the letters. Things went great. He rejoiced that the prestige of Babylon was growing, and he hoped his father saw it. He may not consider him in vain now. Once upon a time his father reproached him for excessive imagination. They say so people will think that he is really smart. It remains only to destroy the Church of Sophia. Growing hoped that everyone would consider it a cell of heresy. The maid smiled. They say Alish is already doing it. Meanwhile, Alish was heading to the Demiurge Church underground. She descended the stone stairs silently and opened the heavy door to the darkness. Just behind them, the angry apostles of the goddess Sophia. They shouted, "How did this heretical girl daze with them? God will punish them all." But in response, Alish broke up. Her breasts were bounced into the beat of wild laughter. She mockingly reminded how much time they were kept, and the punishment never came. "So where is your goddess? Oh, is it late?" These words only ignited the apostles. They called her, accused of arrogance, remembered King Chuber, hoping that he would send an army to help. Alicia sighed. "You hope for someone. For the king, on the goddess. Like babies, that nothing can." The priest just lifted his head as a dagger hit his hood. Another stuck in the wall, but cut the face of one of the apostles. Seeing the fear in her eyes, Alicia just warned. The next time he would kiss a little differently. She never confessed to others, but there were moments when she regretted that she was born in a family of Demiurge's followers. She despised the Church of Sophia. Her parents were executed because of rumors. She even hated Demiurga, not knowing whether he exists at all. But everything changed when she met him. Babylon grew. Although he was a nobleman, he accepted the Demiurge Church, gave them a temple, freedom, and a happy life. And now she thanks not even to God, but to those who were born thanks to him. A wonderful Rice. She blushed, grabbed her cheeks with her hands. Her faith has never been so sweet. The supreme priest looked at her with horror. She is crazy. One of the ministers gritted his teeth. This woman lost her mind because she supports the common people. They were sure that it was Lord Riss who used it to conquer the people. Alicia laughed even louder and stated, "It's time for a small experiment." She urged the guys to find new ways to improve life, even Dragon. She had to try her best for the man she loved more than God, he answered her. Meanwhile, the night has reached the peak, and the younger prince arrived in the royal palace of Noah, ready to go to the king. Going to the throne hall, the prince did not even think when he killed the former who stood in his way. With a wild cry, he burst into the hall and ordered King Jarber to die. It was a revenge for her brother, Rice herself. The king was only enthusiastically shouted, "Incredible." Who would have thought that the talentless prince would dare to stand up against him again? The prince swung his fist and rushed to the old freak, demanding that he showed what is worth your throne. Meanwhile, Ovage, looking at the window, noted how the rain with lightning covered the sky. He reported that the conspiracy had already covered 23 territories. He smiled. His dear friend was a real master, not from this world. The faithful helper bowed to report that another lord fell. And though it happened, no one even noticed. Ovagim specified whether there was a negative impact due to change of power. But since the new lords all from the Demiurge Church, it only strengthened order. Moreover, by stopping the leaders of the Church of Sophia, they reduced panic among the population. Ovagim praised the girl for reasonable actions. Smiling, he said that his time has come. It should be acting immediately. He ordered all agents to prepare. From now on they will work with new lords, his students and friends. Suddenly, another girl appeared, whispering something in the first ear. Her look changed. The news was unexpected. She immediately reported Overkheim. An extraordinary event occurred in the royal castle. Prince Johann showed his power. He rushed to the old man with a scared roar. His fist flew just into the face of the king. He shouted, not from pain, but from rage. This boy got it terribly. But, shattering, the bars laughed. He was pleased to hear that from his son's mouth. Avoiding the blows, the king acknowledged with a smile. He finally became interesting. The prince was angry again, but the old man leapt back. It was even more angry with the guy. He ordered, stand! The bars just smiled and activated the technique of communication, tyrannical armor. His body was covered with lightning, and a frantic storm swirled around the beard. The eyes were looking forward, and he offered the boy at last, begin. The king was rushed forward, and at lightning speed the prince rolled into the stomach with all power. A powerful blow to the old man spread part of the wall of the castle. The body of Prince Johann flew out, and the king, laughing joyfully, rushed. In the air he exclaimed enthusiastically that his son has finally changed, and for that he was waiting for the highest award. With his hands raised, the king activated the technique of merger, the Titan Court. A giant block of land appeared in the sky. Tarbur turned to Johann and all residents of the capital. After pointing to this block, the size of the whole city, he ordered, accept my love. People who stood far saw something like a meteorite flying straight to the capital. Prince Johann instantly activated his demonic force, gave rice. He could take a blow on himself, but not to allow the innocent residents of the city to die because of the old man. Dragon wings unfolded behind his back. He is skipped. As the king, after that, he dares to call himself Lord. Johann flew into the sky and flew towards a huge visor, shouting that he would protect people. Because he is not just a prince, but a student of a great brother Riza. He put all his anger and all power in his fist, hitting simply in the center of the meteorite. A giant cliff, thousands of times larger than it, began to crack. The guy's hands were in the blood. The pain was unbearable, but he continued to strike. With each new impetus, new cracks appeared on the cliff, and it began to disintegrate. Johann only dreamed of one thing, that people would recognize him, to say that he is not in vain wearing the title. Above all, he wanted to go the path of Riza and become a ruler that everyone will love. Another blow, and the cliffs began to split into pieces. She flashed bright light and flew to the wreckage in the air. Falling with the debris, Johann smiled. He succeeded. However, the forces left him, and he flew into the castle wall with a deft blow. The king landed after him. He did not restrain himself in the battle and, laughing, admitted, the guy withstood his attack, and it was really worth praise. The king approached the beaten Johann and said with a smile, he has been waiting for someone like this. On a rebel that could entertain even the strongest. His impressions exceeded all expectations. Because besides Riza, no one would have guessed it. The old man could not believe that the hero had taken and turned small into a monster, and then sent to kill the king himself. For the first time in his life, he did not predict such a turn. The king lifted his son by his head and said that he would spare him, because he was crazy and managed to impress him. Turning Johann in the air, the king ordered to return to Babylon and to pass the cut. He did not mind to start majestic. War. After that, he threw the boy into the sky, and he disappeared behind the clouds. A bright star shone in the sky, the flight of Johann, and the king acknowledged, though he is a son, but is truly worthy. Meanwhile, the hero of the Reese relaxed, noted that here, finally peace. Together with Klaus and the maid, he rested in the garden of Babylon Castle. Although it is full of weirdo, no one has fought lately. Reese decided, this is all because of his good example. But from under a pile of earth, a female voice was heard. Satisfied, Alicia looked out of the pit, and several hooded persons. Reese suggested that she was a mole that evolved into a person. Alicia blushed and called him crazy. It turned out that she dug underground tunnels, preparing for a possible attack. Even Klaus of Maid was amazed. In the end, Alicia confessed she planned to dig a tunnel just to the Riza room. He reminded her that his room was on the 3rd floor. From disappointment, the girl flooded with tears. She was noisy but very fun, and thanks to her, he remembered how nice to be someone who is a little good. At this point, Klaus noticed something in the sky and called the Riza to look. The hero thought it was a falling star and decided to make a desire. More precisely, even two are a real heroine, or a real antagonist. Alicia looked up too, and was surprised to see that the star was flying simply here. When she approached, everyone saw it was Prince Johann. Klaus instinctively closed the cutter and pushed it back. However, it did not save. Johann, at a frantic speed, flew into the roof of the castle and leveled it with the ground.